Chapter 2679. Although the momentum of this move wasn't too great, it gave Yi Shang an extremely dangerous feeling. While reminding Jin Ye, he immediately made preparations to attack. Don't worry. I'm not that easy to deal with. At this moment, Jin Ye suddenly used a secret technique to increase his strength and unleashed another ultimate move. Golden Crow burns the heavens. The fiery light that filled the sky immediately enveloped the surrounding space. Even the attack that the Azura God King had unleashed was enveloped within it. Oh, so strong. Seeing Jin Ye unleash such a powerful ultimate move, Night Sorrow was slightly surprised. Back then, Jin Ye hadn't used this move when they were fighting. Not bad. Very strong. The Azura God King was slightly surprised that his attack using the short sword was once again neutralized. However, he did not panic. He also used a secret technique to increase his strength and activated the short sword that the Overlord of all heaven had given him. He despised Jin Ye for being too simplistic. In fact, he only had this short sword as his trump card. However, after activating it this time, it did explode with a considerable amount of energy. Its power almost shattered the sky. So strong. Is this the Divine King's strongest attack? In the clear sky pagoda, Night Sorrow's new wife, Jing Yun, saw this attack and immediately said worriedly, "Husband, you have to be careful." "Yes, husband. The Divine King's attack is no small matter. Take care of yourself." Sikong Chiyu also warned. In her opinion, the Divine King's attack was too strong. It wasn't something that the exalted gods could resist. She was very worried for Night Sorrow. "It's okay, don't be afraid. This kind of attack shouldn't be able to hurt me." Night Sorrow, who was using the sea serpent's eye to observe the attack, transmitted his voice to his wife in the clear sky pagoda. He comforted his father, Yi Wuyo, his mother, and the other clansmen. The Divine King's might was a little too strong for them. Even Lin Piaomiao, who had awakened the Paragon bloodline, felt a little suppressed. However, with Night Sorrow's consolation, their emotions gradually calmed down. After all, Night Sorrow had never disappointed them. "I don't think you can block this move." In the face of the dagger's outburst, Jin Ye sent a telepathic message to Night Sorrow. Upon hearing Jin Ye's voice transmission, Night Sorrow said, "Try to avoid unnecessary injuries. Come back." "All right." Facing the Divine King of Azura's explosive attack, Jin Ye spat out a mouthful of blood essence to strengthen his flames. After colliding with the Divine King of Azura, he immediately fled from the center of the battlefield. He didn't take this attack head-on. The people of the Golden Crow clan are indeed weak and as cowardly as mice. When the Divine King of Azura saw Jin Ye return to Night Sorrow's side, he immediately began to mock him. "What's there to be arrogant about? You're just a piece of trash who barely beat me by relying on a divine artifact." In the face of the Divine King of Azura's mockery, Jin Ye replied indifferently. In his opinion, losing to a divine artifact refined by a sovereign was nothing to be ashamed of. The Divine King of Azura's face had a smug smile. "Is relying on a divine artifact not strength? Loser, hurry up and get the hell away from this Divine King of Azura." After cursing Jin Ye in high spirits, he stared at Night Sorrow with a malicious gaze. "Ant, the Divine King you're relying on has been completely defeated. Hand over the sovereign divine artifact immediately. In your hands it's like a pearl covered in dust." "Whether or not it's like a pearl covered in dust has nothing to do with you. Trash." Night Sorrow's pupils constricted as he looked at the Divine King of Azura. One of his hands was already resting on the newly refined sky cloud arrow, ready to attack at a moment's notice. "If this Divine King of Azura is trash, then as a high god you aren't even trash." After being mocked by Night Sorrow, the Divine King of Azura was unable to restrain his anger. "I'll give you 3 breaths of time to hand over the sovereign divine artifact in your hands. Otherwise the Tianyun school will be completely destroyed today. You don't have the strength to do so." Night Sorrow took out a sky cloud arrow and placed it on the Tianyun bow. Then he aimed at the Divine King of Azura. He already had some experience fighting against the Divine King in the ancient Golden Crow world, so he didn't panic at this moment. The Night Moon clansmen and the Horn clansmen in the clear sky pagoda were all worried. Although the Horn clansmen had seen Night Sorrow shoot down the sun, they were still very worried about the divine artifact in the hands of the Divine King of Azura. "Brother Night Sorrow, be careful. Even the Divine King Jin Ye couldn't withstand the attack of that divine artifact. You must be careful." Jiao Kong couldn't help but remind him from within the spatial Dharma treasure. "It's fine. No matter how strong his divine artifact is, it's only a half-step sovereign divine artifact. The Tianyun Bao is a true sovereign divine artifact. Knight Sorrow had a trace of confidence on his face as he replied. Then he used the sea serpent's eye to stare at the divine king of Azura. Since you want to die, then don't blame this divine king of bullying the weak. You holding a sovereign divine artifact is no different from a child holding a saber. You won't be able to do anything. The divine king of Azura said coldly with the short sword in his hand. Then he attacked Knight Sorrow. Unlike when he fought Jin Ye, he chose to close the distance as soon as he used his divine domain. Although he looked down on Knight Sorrow, the divine king of Azura had heard from Kim Song that Knight Sorrow's Skycloud Sun shooting art was powerful. He didn't want to be a target. You want to close the distance? It's not as simple as you think. Knight Sorrow, who had been using the sea serpent's eye to observe his opponent's movements, activated the 33 Skies Battle Mystic technique. After increasing his strength, he released his divine domain. He hadn't had time to learn the mysterious Sky Battle Mystic technique that Xiao Tianxian had given him. Although Knight Sorrow's divine domain was definitely not as powerful as the divine king of Azura's, the pressure he felt immediately lessened. This allowed him to draw his bow and nock an arrow. Skycloud Sun shooting art. The divine king of Azura's figure flickered in the void. It was very difficult to pinpoint his position. Knight Sorrow, who had activated the sea serpent's eye, could see through it. He used the Skycloud Sun shooting art and shot out 3 arrows in a row. These arrows that had been strengthened by the Sovereign Stone, after being shot out, each of them had a powerful aura. So powerful. Little 13th can actually shoot out such a powerful attack. Yang Lei, who was in the Clear Sky Pagoda, immediately exclaimed in admiration when she saw Knight Sorrow unleash such a powerful attack. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the power of this attack was earth-shattering. It made her feel relaxed and happy. Upon hearing Yang Lei's words, Aoi, who had also relaxed a little, smiled and said, "Ninth junior sister, can you say that you can shoot? Can you not say the word shoot next time? I always feel weird." Sixth senior sister, you've always been dignified. I didn't expect you to have this kind of ability. After realizing the meaning behind Aoi's words, Yang Lei's cheeks turned red. Unlike the relaxed feeling in the Clear Sky Pagoda, the divine king of Azura, who was originally full of confidence, immediately felt a headache when facing Knight Sorrow's Skycloud Sun shooting art. Chapter 2680. Why do these 3 arrows make this divine king's heart palpitate? Since I can't escape, I'll destroy you all. After fleeing through the void for a while, the divine king, who had originally looked down on Knight Sorrow, began to take him seriously. Using the shortsword divine artifact in his hand, he fired 3 beams of energy at the 3 sky cloud arrows. In his view, Knight Sorrow was only a high god. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't possibly unleash the full power of Tianyun Bao. He was confident in his ability to fight back. Boom, boom, boom. Although the sky cloud arrows were very fast, they were still inanimate objects. The divine king's intentional bombardment was immediately intercepted by the shortsword's light. However, after the 3 arrows were blocked, one of them was not shot down. Instead, it continued to shoot toward the Azura God King, piercing through his shoulder blade. You actually injured this divine king. The divine king was immediately enraged by the sky cloud arrow piercing his shoulder blade. Being injured by a high god was a great humiliation to all divine kings. So what if I injured you? I was planning to kill you today. No matter who you are, you'll be punished for behaving so atrociously in Tianyun School's territory. Yishang said in disdain as he swallowed a pill. Although he had become a half-step divine lord after taking the Rainbow Profound Spirit pill, the current Tianyun Bao didn't have Xiao Tianxuan's support, so it was very strenuous for him to move. After firing just 3 sky cloud arrows, he was almost completely exhausted. I don't believe that you can keep using a sovereign divine artifact like this. Noticing Knight Sorrow's action of swallowing a pill, the divine king revealed a cruel smile. To him, the injury on his shoulder was nothing, but the humiliation in his heart was a little greater. Die, you ant! Azura God-killing fist. As the divine king of Shura slashed out with his short sword, he used his left hand to unleash a unique skill of the Shura clan, the Shura God-killing fist. When this move was unleashed, it looked like it was only a single punch. But in the blink of an eye, it turned into a sky full of fist shadows. It looked like the divine king of Azura had turned into a sky full of shadows and punched from different directions. It's useless to be so flashy. This kind of fist technique would have been very powerful for anyone else, even the divine king. However, Night Sorrow had the sea serpent's eye and could easily see where the divine king of Azura's true body was. He drew his bow and shot a sky cloud arrow at his dantian. The sky cloud arrow, which had been strengthened by the sovereign stone, transformed into a thrown spear after it was shot out. His aura was extremely shocking. This made the Shao Tianshan clansmen in the Clear Sky Pagoda completely stupefied. Although their family had produced a formidable ruler, this was the first time they'd seen such a powerful god. Damn it! How could this divine king of Azura's ultimate technique be seen through so easily? Seeing that Night Sorrow not only easily dodged the sword light, but also saw through his true body in an instant, the divine king of Azura roared furiously. At the same time he began to dodge the sky cloud arrow, which had been strengthened by the sovereign stone. This time, Night Sorrow only shot one arrow, but its power was much greater than the previous 3 arrows. Even as the divine king of Azura, he didn't dare to underestimate him. Because your attacks are too crude. Without the help of a divine weapon, you should be the weakest among the divine king. You might even be weaker than me. Night Sorrow said disdainfully. Then he swallowed another pill, drew his bow and shot another arrow at his opponent. After the first arrow, another arrow. This time he shot out 5 arrows in a row. The divine king of Azura, who was already badly battered by a single heavenly cloud arrow, immediately found himself unable to withstand the 5 arrows shot by Night Sorrow. Lord Ruler, save me. This god is a little strange. I'm not his match. Night Sorrow, who was wielding the Tianyun bow, had shot out so many heavenly cloud arrows in a row. In his panic, the divine king of Azura immediately shouted into the void. Trash, this lord has even prepared a divine weapon for you, but you can't even deal with a mere god. The overlord of all heaven's angry curses immediately echoed through the void. Although he was furious, he still said, 1,000 shadows, go down and help. Yes, Lord Ruler. Upon hearing the order, the divine king of 1,000 shadows immediately flew down from the clouds and rushed toward Night Sorrow and the divine king of Azura. Azura. You can't even take down a mere god. The Lord Ruler's expression is extremely ugly. Just as he was about to reach the divine king of Azura, the divine king of 1,000 shadows immediately transmitted a message to the other party. What do you know? How can a sovereign divine weapon be so easy to deal with? After being despised, the Azura God King immediately replied with a gloomy expression. He was certain that if it weren't for the sovereign divine weapon Tianyun Bao, Night Sorrow wouldn't have been his match. No matter what divine weapon it is, the main point is still the person. You cover me while I find an opportunity to kill him. As the 1,000 Shadows God King swayed, his figure gradually turned blurry. This was him using his famous ultimate skill, the 1,000 Shadows divine art. The divine king of Azura said in a very unhappy tone, hurry up and help me deal with this crisis. Otherwise, what's the point of you coming down? He was still being chased by the 5 heavenly cloud arrows and was in a very sorry state. It's just a few arrows. Look at how flustered you are. The divine king of 1,000 shadows alternated between illusory and corporeal, giving off an extremely ethereal feeling. As he mocked the divine king of Azura, he used the 1,000 shadows divine king's fist and smashed it directly at the heavenly cloud arrows. 2 of the heavenly cloud arrows were instantly blasted to the ground by his attack from the side. The divine king of 1,000 shadows, is it? What's the point of using these fancy ultimate techniques in front of me again? The heavenly cloud arrows chasing the divine king of Azura were knocked down by the divine king of 1,000 shadows. Night Sorrow recalled them with a thought, then took out 3 more heavenly cloud arrows and shot them at the other party. Laughable ant, can you determine where this divine king of Azura is? Seeing Night Sorrow shoot 3 arrows at him, the divine king of 1,000 shadows laughed disdainfully and used the divine 1,000 shadows art again. His figure became completely illusory in the air. You're truly blindly confident. Night Sorrow, who had just used the clam dragon eye, sneered. If others were fighting the divine king of 1,000 shadows, it would be best to use a supreme technique that attacked the soul, but he didn't need to. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After the 3 heavenly cloud arrows were shot, they immediately bombarded the 1,000 shadows god king's true body. What's going on? This high god ant can actually see through this divine king's true body? Seeing the 3 heavenly cloud arrows shooting toward him, the 1,000 shadows god king didn't believe it at first, but then his pupils shrank as he shouted. The ant you speak of is much stronger than you imagine. The divine king of Azura, who was resisting the 3 heavenly cloud arrows, saw the shock on the divine king of 1,000 shadows' face and immediately mocked him. You two pieces of trash are still mocking each other in this situation? Don't you feel ashamed? Are you really going to make this god deal with a high god? The ruler of all heaven's roar echoed through the air. Chapter 2681. Lord Ruler, it's my fault. The Divine King responded to the ruler of all heaven's rebuke and immediately used a secret technique unique to the Azura race to increase his strength. The Azura God King raised his physical strength to the peak he could reach and began to use the short sword divine artifact in his hand to attack the 3 heaven cloud arrows. He knew that if he couldn't deal with these arrows, it would be impossible to deal with Night Sorrow. Ruler of all heaven, Thousand Shadow is preparing to use his ultimate technique. I hope you will fulfill your promise of a reward. On the other side, the Divine King transmitted to all heaven. His body gradually solidified as he used a secret technique to increase his strength to deal with Night Sorrow's 3 sky cloud arrows. As the ruler of all heaven, I naturally wouldn't lie. If it weren't for the urgency of the situation, you wouldn't have been given this task, the ruler of all heaven replied disdainfully. For this matter, him bringing the Thousand Shadows God King here could be considered a coincidence. I, Thousand Shadow, was the one who measured the stature of a gentleman with my own yardstick. I hope the ruler of all heaven won't take offense. The Divine King replied and then entered a state of desperation. While the Divine King and Thousand Shadow Divine King were using their full strength to deal with the sky cloud arrows, Thousand Shadow recovered a pill. Night Sorrow swallowed a pill to recover his vitality. After recovering, he knocked an arrow on his bow again and shot an arrow at Thousand Shadows God King. Without the help of Shao Tianxian, who was an artifact spirit, every arrow he fired consumed an enormous amount of energy. The average person wouldn't be able to bear it. Bzzz. When the arrow was shot, a buzzing sound was heard in the void. The sky cloud arrow shot toward the Thousand Shadows God Monarch's Dantian with an earth-shaking momentum. It easily broke through the defenses of his divine domain. Damn it! What kind of god is this? He can continuously fire arrows with the aura of a ruler. If I had known he would be so difficult to deal with, I wouldn't have gotten involved in this mess. Originally, the Divine King of Thousand Shadows was already in a terrible fix. Because the heavenly cloud arrow was so powerful, he had to go all out just to completely suppress it. Now that another arrow was coming, and it was even more powerful than the previous 3 arrows, he immediately became flustered. I'll kill you while you're sick. The Thousand Shadows Divine King's art of the Thousand Shadows Divine King was completely useless against Night Sorrow. It could be said that it was severely countered. Relatively speaking, he was less of a threat than the Divine King of Azura. Seeing that the Divine King of Thousand Shadows was flustered, Night Sorrow used the heavenly Samsara halberd and unleashed the forbidden reincarnation spear. Just as the Divine King of the Thousand Shadows was preparing to dodge, Night Sorrow instantly used the virtuous dragon-locking formation, temporarily trapping it within. Then all the attacks including the arrows bombarded the sealed space. In the face of the 4 heavenly cloud arrows and the heavenly Samsara halberd, even the Divine King of Thousand Shadows found it difficult to endure. After being struck, he screamed miserably. Trash. Thousand Shadows, are you really this kind of Divine King? The All-Heaven Ruler coldly snorted as he watched the Divine King of Thousand Shadows being beaten up miserably by Night Sorrow. All-Heaven Ruler, this god's methods are extremely strange. I, Thousand Shadows, am unable to deal with him. Farewell. The extremely miserable Thousand Shadows God King replied unhappily after being reprimanded. Then he used a secret technique to flee into the distance. Could it be that this Divine King of Thousand Shadows isn't one of the All-Heaven Ruler's men? Seeing the Divine King of Thousand Shadows flee, Night Sorrow didn't give chase. Instead, he locked his gaze on the Divine King of Azura. At this moment, the Divine King of Azura had completely suppressed the 3 heavenly cloud arrows. Although the heavenly cloud arrows had been strengthened by the Sovereign Stone, they weren't truly at the sovereign level. After being suppressed, they gradually lost their luster and terrifying offensive power. Your arrows aren't that great after all. Now that they aren't much of a threat to me, let's see what other tricks you have. After finding a way to deal with the heavenly cloud arrows, the Divine King of Azura laughed sinisterly and sent an Azura palm at Night Sorrow. It seems like I can use my strength to resist this palm. Facing the true Divine King of Azura's attack, Night Sorrow pondered for a moment and decided not to use the Tianyun Bao. Instead, he condensed his Divine Yuan energy and sent out a heaven-cleaving earth-splitting palm. Ah! Reckless ant. If you don't use the sovereign artifact, you're nothing. Seeing that Night Sorrow didn't use the Tianyun bow and sent out a palm to meet his attack head-on, the Divine King of Azura laughed sinisterly. Although I'm nothing, you're definitely the weakest among the Divine King. If you don't use the sovereign artifact, you're nothing. Don't be so smug, take this properly. It was rare that the Divine King of Azura didn't use the half-step sovereign artifact in his hand. Night Sorrow confidently chose to meet his attack head-on. Since ancient times, no divine lord has ever killed the Divine King of the Divine World. You, a high god, want to stir up waves in front of me? How naive. Facing Night Sorrow, the Divine King of Azura was extremely confident. His palms smashed down heavily at Night Sorrow's position. Just because something hasn't happened doesn't mean I can't do it. Night Sorrow sent out a heaven-cleaving, earth-splitting palm to meet the attack. Husband, be careful. After all, the other party is the Divine King. Sikong Chuyu, who knew that she shouldn't speak to affect Night Sorrow, shouted worriedly from the clear sky pagoda. Yang Lei, Lin Piaomiao, and the others beside her were also frowning. As for Jing Yun, who had just married into the family, she was even more worried. After all, a high god fighting the Divine King sounded like a fantasy story. However, Night Sorrow was doing it for real. What a joke. The Divine King of Azura, who was in the void, felt that the high god before him was simply courting death when he met Night Sorrow's palm. He had a sovereign artifact, but he didn't make good use of it. Instead, he chose to meet the attack head-on. This was simply throwing an egg at a rock. Boom. However, after the two of them met, something happened that surprised the Divine King of Azura. Night Sorrow, a mere high god, hadn't been killed immediately. He hadn't even suffered a single loss. On the contrary, he had been forced back hundreds of miles. How is this possible? Is he really a high god? As a Divine King of Azura, he had actually suffered a loss in the process of meeting a high god. The Divine King of Azura couldn't accept this at all. Scum, back down. I, the Divine King of Azura, will personally take action. Seeing that the Divine King of Azura couldn't do anything to Night Sorrow in a direct confrontation, the Divine King of Azura, who was hiding in the void, couldn't take it anymore and slowly revealed himself. He was only a little more than 3 feet tall and looked like a child. However, his face was a little ugly. After revealing himself, the Divine King of Azura looked coldly at Night Sorrow. Ant, hand over the sovereign artifact in your hands. Otherwise, no one in this world can save you. If you want my sovereign artifact, come and get it yourself. The Divine King of Azura didn't use his divine domain to suppress him. Night Sorrow replied. Even in the face of a Divine King, he didn't want to take a step back. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you can fight the Divine King? I can kill you with a single finger. Chapter 2682. There was no question that the Divine King was acting shamelessly against a god. All heaven was a god, yet he had actually attacked Night Sorrow. That was utterly shameless. Although Night Sorrow was strong enough to fight against the Divine King, he had no way of resisting a god's attack. In fact, after all heaven released his divine domain, Night Sorrow couldn't even move. Even so, he didn't panic in the slightest. Xiao Tianxian transmitted, "Don't be afraid. Given all heaven's strength, he won't be able to act arrogantly." I understand, Sect Master. Xiao Tianxian, who had disappeared for some time, reappeared and returned to Tianyun Bao's side to help Night Sorrow resist all heaven's divine domain. This made Night Sorrow feel much more relaxed. As soon as he finished speaking, a blurry figure with a blurry face appeared in the void and blasted a punch at Luo Tian. Who goes there? How dare you ambush my all-heaven? The all-heaven god, who had been pointing a finger at Night Sorrow to kill him, suddenly realized that someone was attacking him. He immediately retracted his attack and met the fist in the void. I don't need to ambush you, all-heaven. The figure in the void punched out, attracting the attention of everyone in the world. Here. Hegemon Tianai. Luo Tian, who had thrown out a punch in preparation to fight back, quickly recognized the newcomer and cried out in alarm. Although all heaven was a god, he wasn't a match for the strongest person in the god realm, Hegemon Tianai. With a bang, he was sent flying. His entire fist was shattered, making him look extremely miserable. Since you're still useful to the god realm, scram. If you try to steal anything from Night Sorrow again, I, Tianai, will uproot your all-heaven god manner. Hegemon Tianai, who defeated all heaven with a single punch, coldly berated him. From today onwards, if a ruler attacks Night Sorrow, I, Tianai, will immediately take action. After saying this, he looked at Night Sorrow and said, Night Sorrow, I'm already aware of your decision to withdraw from the Tianyun school. I'll give you a piece of land and I hope that you can establish your own divine territory. Night Sorrow, you don't have to be so courteous. Tianai is not an outsider. Noticing that Night Sorrow didn't respond, Xiao Tianxian and Tianyun Bao immediately transmitted his voice. Thank you, Hegemon Tianai. Upon hearing this, Night Sorrow immediately thanked him. After leaving the Tianyun school, he really didn't know where to go. If he could get a piece of land and manage it well, then the entire Night Moon Empire would have a place in the realm of the gods. You're welcome. You and I both came from the lower realm and we both joined Tianyun school and we both left. This is also a type of fate. Hegemon Tianai chuckled. If you weren't so outstanding, I would have taken you under my wing. Hegemon Tianai, you flatter me. Night Sorrow cupped his hands. I'm not flattering you. I can't praise you too much. I believe that one day, you'll be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with me, and perhaps even go further. Hegemon Tianai said casually, then turned to the sky and said domineeringly, from today onwards, anyone who dares to plot against the Tianyun Bao will become my mortal enemy. A few of the figures hiding in the sky immediately chose to flee after hearing Hegemon Tianai's words. They knew that there was no point in hiding in front of the most powerful person in the realm of the gods. Many thanks for your care, Hegemon Tianai. Hegemon Tianai didn't even glance at the Tianyun Bao. Instead, he issued a warning to the others. Night Sorrow was extremely grateful for this. You're welcome. Now that this matter has come to an end, let's find a place to have a few drinks. Hegemon Tianai looked at Night Sorrow. All right, Hegemon. Night Sorrow nodded. He understood that Hegemon Tianai wanted to catch up with Xiao Tianxian. He had his wives prepare a banquet in a bamboo forest at the foot of Tianyun School. In the future, there's no need to call me Hegemon. After taking a seat, Hegemon Tianai said casually. Clearly he didn't treat Yishan as a junior. All right. Night Sorrow replied politely, but at the same time he felt a bit awkward. After all, he couldn't possibly call him Hegemon Tianai, could he? Calling him Hegemon Tianai would seem a bit distant. Haha, Night Sorrow, there's no need to be so polite. We're all on the same side. At this moment, Xiao Tianxian emerged from the Tianyun Bao once more. After saying a few words, he sat down and began to chat with Tianai. The two of them chatted for a long time, but what puzzled Night Sorrow was that Xiao Tianxian hadn't mentioned anything about the eternal sovereign world. Thus he sent a message to Xiao Tianxian. Sect Master, why didn't you mention the eternal sovereign world to Hegemon Tianai? Because telling him would only cause him more trouble. It's better not to. Xiao Tianxian sighed. The only person who can save the God realm is you, Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow understands. Night Sorrow replied, feeling as if a heavy burden had been placed on his shoulders. Even Hegemon Tianai couldn't do anything about it. Now he had to deal with it himself. Most people wouldn't be able to shoulder this burden. Night Sorrow. My artifact spirit body is about to disappear. If you need anything in the future, feel free to ask Tianai. After sending Night Sorrow a message, Xiao Tianxian spoke up. Right. Night Sorrow, there's no need for you to stand on ceremony with me. Upon hearing Xiao Tianxuan's words, Hegemon Tianai smiled and nodded. Haha, having the number one person in the God realm as my backer is a wonderful feeling. Night Sorrow chuckled. In truth, given his personality, he wasn't the type to ask for reinforcements for no reason. He suddenly recalled the matter of Zhenye's cannon and began to explain it to Hegemon Tianai. Hegemon Tianai said, any clan that grows stronger will encounter all sorts of problems. Generally speaking, when clansmen fight with others, as long as they aren't suppressed by someone much stronger than them, I won't interfere. This is a rule of the Zhenyi clan. The matter between you and Zhenyedian is the karma between you two. Night Sorrow understands. Hegemon Tianai's words meant that he didn't take this matter to heart. Night Sorrow raised his cup. This cup of wine is to thank Hegemon Tianai for bestowing this land upon me. Ah, my piece of land is relatively barren. Furthermore, the sect leader asked for it for you. If you want to thank someone, thank the sect master. Hegemon Tianai chuckled, then continued, Night Sorrow. Although I've bestowed this land upon you, I won't guard it for you forever. Do you understand what this means? Please speak frankly, Hegemon Tianai. After expressing his thanks to Xiao Tianxian, Night Sorrow looked towards Hegemon Tianai. Chapter 2683. So that's how it is. Although Hegemon Tianai didn't go into too much detail, Night Sorrow already had a general idea. Not a single piece of land in the God realm was absolutely safe. Now that he'd received the land bestowed upon him by Hegemon Tianai, he'd definitely be attacked by others. He might even have to fight for years on end. You don't need to worry too much. No matter what happens, just go ahead and do it. If others go too far, I won't just sit by and watch. Hegemon Tianai drank several cups of wine, then said, "These wines of yours really do have a unique flavor. They remind me of the lower realms. These wines were brewed by my wife using the techniques of the lower realms. If you like them, you can take some with you when you leave," Night Sorrow said, then sent a message to Aoi, telling her to prepare some good wine for him. "All right. If that's the case, I won't refuse." Hegemon Tianai nodded, then looked at Xiao Tianxian. "Sect Master, tell me about yourself." "There's nothing to tell you about me. The future of the God realm belongs to you." Xiao Tianxian smiled but didn't mention the eternal sovereign world. Instead he changed the topic. "Night Sorrow, what are you planning to name your territory?" "My title is Undying and I cultivate the Undying mantra. Let's call it Undying Domain." Night Sorrow didn't hesitate at all. He immediately said the name he had in mind. "Titled Undying? Good, very good. Undying Domain isn't a bad name either. I trust that in the near future, this name will resound throughout the entire God realm," Hegemon Tianai praised. Xiao Tianxian chuckled. "If you want to make a name for yourself, you have to be a bit more ruthless. That way, others won't dare to act against you." "Night Sorrow will do his best." Night Sorrow replied, then began to ask the two of them about cultivation. With two hegemons guiding him, Night Sorrow felt like his understanding of the Divine Lord realm had improved. He was already not too far away from breaking through to the Divine Lord realm. "Night Sorrow, don't be in such a hurry to break through. If you stay in the Great God level for too short a time, it could be detrimental to your future cultivation." Knowing that Night Sorrow had just become a high god and would soon become a half-step Divine Lord, Xiao Tianxian reminded him. "Don't worry, sect leader. Night Sorrow knows what to do." When it came to cultivation, Night Sorrow felt that every time he advanced, he would naturally succeed. Furthermore, his foundation was deep, so he wasn't afraid of cultivating too quickly. As the banquet drew to a close, Hegemon Tianai said, "Night Sorrow, I have a suggestion. Do you want to hear it?" Hegemon Tianai's teachings? Night Sorrow naturally wants to listen, Night Sorrow immediately replied. "Although divine artifacts are important, they are still external objects. I have a Hegemon artifact as well, but I don't normally need to carry it on me," Hegemon Tianai said slowly. Night Sorrow understands what Hegemon Tianai means. In the future, unless it's a matter of life and death, Night Sorrow won't use Tianyun Bao again. Night Sorrow immediately understood Hegemon Tianai's intentions. He wanted him to rely less on external forces. "It's good that you understand. In addition, there's one more thing. Once you break through to the Divine Lord level, you can participate in the Divine Lord Challenge I'm holding. If your results are outstanding, you can enter my divine artifact, the Sky Split Tower, and gain many benefits." Hegemon Tianai continued, "As for territory, once you break through to the Divine Lord level, you can ask me for it. That'll give you some motivation." "All right. Night Sorrow understands." Night Sorrow nodded. Once he broke through to the Divine Lord level, many divine kings would no longer be a threat. He understood Hegemon Tianai's intentions. At this moment, Night Sorrow suddenly thought of the Sky Split Bone Pagoda in the Endless Bone region. Puzzled, he asked, "Hegemon Tianai, do you know the name of the Sky Split Bone Pagoda?" The names of the Sky Split Bone Pagoda and the Sky Split Bone Pagoda were simply too similar. He couldn't help but feel puzzled. The Sky Split Bone Pagoda. I once had a disciple who seemed to have refined it. However, I don't know the specifics. Hegemon Tianai paused for a moment, then began to explain the Tao to Night Sorrow. "Fine. Night Sorrow understands." Night Sorrow assented, then began to ask Hegemon Tianai about the Sky Split Bone Pagoda. After learning that it had 99 levels and comparing it to the 9 levels of the Sky Split Bone Pagoda, he felt that there wasn't much of a connection between the two. After the banquet concluded, Night Sorrow sent Hegemon Tianai away, then began to chat with Xiao Tianxian. Xiao Tianxian gave Night Sorrow some final instructions, then his artifact spirit body completely disappeared from the world. Night Sorrow knew very well that this was only a temporary parting. Once they reached the eternal sovereign world, they would naturally meet again. There was nothing to be sad about. "Husband, where should I go next?" After leaving the Tianyun school, Sikong Chuyu asked. Hegemon Tianai had promised to give him territory, but Night Sorrow would have to become a divine lord before he could fulfill his promise. From the looks of it, Night Sorrow and the entire Night Moon Empire had once more become homeless. Let's first go to Seaside City to find Senior Tianqing. We'll rescue Auntie Fei together with her, then we'll come up with other plans. Night Sorrow said a few words to Sikong Chuyu, then flew towards Seaside City. Captain. In the future when we have territory we'll have things to do. Xian Jizi, who hadn't spoken for a long time, transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. With territory, the god-slaying team of the Divine World will officially begin their expedition. Night Sorrow said to Xian Jizi and the others, then continued, but for now everyone's strength is a little weak. While I'm in the process of breaking through to the Divine Lord level, I hope everyone can quickly improve their strength in the Clear Sky Pagoda. Currently, there was a huge king-grade divine vein in the Clear Sky Pagoda, which made cultivation twice the result with half the effort. He hoped that a few divine lords would emerge from the crowd as soon as possible. Only then would they have the strength to lead the team into battle. Captain, don't worry. Seeing that you're already able to fight against the Divine King, we're all anxious in our hearts. Everyone is working harder to cultivate. Xian Jizi said with a smile. Whoever breaks through to the Divine Lord level first will be appointed as the City Lord. Night Sorrow said with a smile, then hurried on his way. As he hurried on, he pondered about how to strengthen the immortal divine realm. In the future he would likely leave. Before that, he wanted to establish a territory for his people that no one would dare to invade. Only then would he be able to head to the eternal supreme realm with peace of mind. Husband, there seems to be a battle ahead. Night Sorrow kept thinking about this while flying. When he approached Seaside City, he discovered that there was a great battle outside the city, so Jing Yun reminded him. What's going on? Night Sorrow, who came back to his senses, looked over and discovered that Seaside City was completely surrounded by dark creatures. There were dark masses of evil creatures in all directions. With Senior Tianqing's strength, she wouldn't just stand by and watch these evil creatures wreak havoc. What's going on? Chapter 2684. After opening the Sea Serpent's Eye to observe the dark evil creatures outside Haibei City, Night Sorrow discovered that there were 4 different clans in the north, south, east, and west. Each of them was led by an invincible Sir God. There were at least 20 Sir Gods and countless High Gods and Feather Gods under their command. The dark creatures around Haibei City shouldn't be so powerful, Night Sorrow said as he analyzed the 4 different clans in front of him. They were the Dark Murlocs, the Soul-Devouring Beasts, the Dark Demons and the Vampire Bats. When he had entered the Endless Bone region and Jinyuan Sir God's cave abode, the chief-level evil creatures he encountered were either sealed or crippled invincible Sir Gods. There weren't even many ordinary Sir Gods. Now that there was such a dark mass, he couldn't understand it. I don't care. Let's enter the city and take a look. The besieged Haibei City's gates were tightly shut. If it weren't for the formation around it, the city would have been breached. Now the surrounding areas were completely surrounded by the evil creatures. There were only a few Feather God Realm practitioners scattered on the city walls of Haibei City. Their faces were all filled with fear. Obviously, the critical situation in Haibei City made everyone tremble in fear. Night Sorrow, who was about to enter the city, took out the Samsara halberd and blasted the Inferno demon toward the vampire bat camp closest to him. The Samsara halberd, which had been upgraded to a king-level divine artifact, blasted the Inferno demon. The flames were like a burning sun. All the dark creatures that were touched by the flames were completely burned to ashes. They turned into streaks of power of merit and surged into Night Sorrow's body. An enemy sneak attack. Prepare to attack. The leader of the vampire bat camp, an invincible Sir God vampire bat, roared when it was blasted by the Inferno demon that had been shot from the sky. Night Sorrow's attack just now had caused the vampire bat camp to lose 2 Sir Gods. This made it furious. When the bloodthirsty bats noticed Yi Shang's figure, they immediately charged at him ferociously. They seemed to blot out the sky and cover the earth, like waves after waves of turbulent ocean waves. Most people would feel fear when faced with so many vampire bats. Night Sorrow, on the other hand, was brimming with battle intent. To him, the more dark creatures there were, the better. Facing so many vampire bats, Night Sorrow didn't wait for them to get close. He immediately used the green rock soul-rending roar. Now that he was a half-step divine lord, he no longer needed to use the battle-secret art of the Treastrimsa heavens to increase his strength. He could use the azure rock soul-rending roar. After 3 roars, the vast majority of High God and Feather God level blood-sucking bats were shattered into bits of virtue that surged into his body. Not good. Retreat. He's not someone you can make an enemy of. Seeing the countless vampire bats under his command being killed by Night Sorrow's 3 roars, the leader of the vampire bats, Batfly, immediately commanded the rest of the vampire bats to flee. It then led a dozen or so monarch-level vampire bats forward. Human cultivator, I will suck your blood dry and turn you into a dried husk. Then I will float you outside the city gates. When Batfly was still 1,000 miles away from Night Sorrow, it bared its blood-stained fangs. When it spoke, there was a thick stench of blood around it. It was clear that it had sucked the blood of many cultivators. Beast, where did you come from? Night Sorrow didn't panic in the slightest in front of these vampire bats. He had even fought the Divine King and had the ability to fight against many of them. I come from a place that makes your heart tremble. The leader of the vampire bats, Batfly, didn't answer Yi Shan's question directly. He roared and ordered, "Suck his blood dry." After it gave the order, the many monarch-level vampire bats that were the size of a small mountain began to surround Night Sorrow. Their bloody mouths were like the entrances to a cave, deep and terrifying. You want to suck my blood dry? I'm afraid you don't have the ability. At the city gates, there were many high god and feather god level vampire bats. Night Sorrow glanced at the vampire bat army and ignored them for the time being. He held the Samsara halberd in his hand and fought with the monarch-level vampire bats in front of him. At the same time that Night Sorrow attacked, the leader of the vampire bats, Batfly, took out a strangely shaped divine artifact that looked a bit like a water chestnut from his spatial artifact. He tossed it into the air and it shot out rings of light. Night Sorrow immediately felt a splitting headache when he was enveloped by these light waves. It was very uncomfortable and a sense of violence rose in his heart. What kind of technique is this? Night Sorrow had been cultivating the power of merit all this time. His temperament had never been so violent. He was shocked. He released the power of merit and wrapped it around himself. The influence of these light waves was immediately reduced by a lot. After his mind and body became clear, Night Sorrow continued to fight with the vampire bat army. The power of merit? This is our great enemy. Summon the masters of the other clans. We must take him down today. Batfly, the vampire bat leader, noticed the golden power of merit flowing on the surface of Night Sorrow's body and immediately shouted. After he gave the order, a few high god level vampire bats immediately rushed to the other clans to call for reinforcements. The dark and evil creatures had the advantage. Although there was a big commotion here, the other clans would not send people over unless they were summoned. When the vampire bats went to call for reinforcements, some cultivators guarding the city walls of High Bay City also noticed the battle in front of them. However, their strength was limited. They could not see clearly what was going on and immediately reported it to their superiors. You must take me down. How arrogant of you. Facing the vampire bat leader Batfly and other opponents, Night Sorrow responded disdainfully. Then he used the Samsara halberd to attack with the forbidden Samsara spear. This attack was aimed at the vampire bat leader Batfly. As the spear pierced through the void, Night Sorrow used the Hand of Heaven and Earth Splitting. The Hand of Heaven and Earth Splitting Night Sorrow did not target a specific target. Instead, it directly shook the void and attacked all the other high god level vampire bats. After being shaken by Night Sorrow's Hand of Heaven and Earth Splitting, the surrounding sky suddenly became wrinkled. Some parts of the void were completely shattered. A few high god level vampire bats could not dodge in time and were shaken by this attack. Their flesh and blood splattered everywhere. It was very miserable. Batfly, the vampire bat leader facing the forbidden Samsara spear, was shocked. He did not expect that Night Sorrow, who was only a high god, could release the full power of a king-level divine weapon. Batfly did not have the courage to fight against the attack of the king-level divine weapon Samsara halberd. He chose to dodge immediately. Where do you think you are going? Turn into the power of merit. Seeing that the vampire bat leader Batfly wanted to escape, Night Sorrow, who had activated the sea serpent's eye, immediately chased after him. Damn it! What are you looking at? Stop him for me. If you can't, self-destruct. Chapter 2685. The other vampire bats that had been stunned by Night Sorrow's move turned even redder in an instant. They seemed to have gone completely crazy as they attacked Night Sorrow recklessly, choosing to self-destruct one after another. Self-destruct? What's the use? It's just turning into power of merit. Night Sorrow, who had used the Eye of the Sea Serpent to dodge the attacks, gave up on chasing the leader of the vampire bats, and prepared to deal with the trouble in front of him first. These crazily self-destructing vampire monarch-level bats were indeed a little troublesome. However, with Night Sorrow's evasion and the help of the Merit Dragon locking array, these troubles did not cause much damage and were completely absorbed one by one. Human cultivator. Don't be too complacent. When the other races arrive, it will be the time of your death. Batfly, the leader of the vampire bats who had fled into the distance, saw that all the monarch gods under his command had been killed and the army he led was almost completely disintegrated. He roared unhappily. I'm afraid you won't be able to see my death. The forbidden reincarnation spear did not hit Batfly in the end. Instead it hit the void. Seeing that the other party was still jumping, Night Sorrow immediately used the Dark Sky Wandering Dragon technique that Xiao Tianxin had taught him. This was a movement technique that he had cultivated on the way here. When he used it, he was like a dragon swimming in the void, traveling millions of miles in an instant. In an instant he caught up with Batfly, the leader of the vampire bats. How can he be so fast? Even teleportation was not as fast as Night Sorrow's current speed. Batfly, the leader of the vampire bats, was shocked. He took out a mountainous seal from his spatial device and threw it at Night Sorrow's head. This king-level mountainous seal emitted a dark yellow light. After it enveloped Night Sorrow, he immediately felt that it was difficult to move, and his speed decreased by millions of times. You want to catch up with me? You have no chance at all. When the other leaders arrive, I, Batfly, will personally suck your blood dry. Your blood is full of power of merit, so it should be very delicious. Batfly, the leader of the vampire bats, laughed maniacally when he saw that Night Sorrow's movements had been greatly affected. At this time, the Divine Lord powerhouses of the other three races were already rushing over. The howling sounds of breaking air proved that they weren't too far away. The more the merrier. Night Sorrow, whose speed had been greatly reduced due to the King-grade secret treasures restriction, simply stood where he was and did not chase after the vampire bat leader. He knew that when the reinforcements arrived, the other party would definitely rush over again. Inferno Demon subduing. Glancing at the army of vampire bats outside the city gates, Night Sorrow once again used the heavenly Samsara halberd to unleash the Inferno Demon slaying technique. Hundreds of millions of high celestial and feather god-level blood-sucking bats were incinerated by the Inferno Demon subduing flames. Oh, damn you. The hundreds of millions of soldiers under his command were slaughtered in an instant. The leader of the vampire bats, Batfly, let out a sharp cry. He lost control and unleashed a sonic attack at Night Sorrow. This was his race's innate talent. Night Sorrow, who was hit by this sonic attack, felt a little dazed. He felt as if he had walked into a blurry illusion. It was a magnificent palace. Within the palace, there were thousands of naked beauties. Not only were these women outstanding, but their graceful figures also made one's heart race. Husband, it's good to be here soon. Little Dao. One of the women had just opened her mouth when Night Sorrow snorted coldly and shattered the illusion in front of him. This move by the leader of the vampire bats, Batfly, was completely fatal to other high celestial cultivators. Even to most divine lords, it had a great effect of confusing them. However, Night Sorrow's heart was as still as a rock. How could he be confused by such a move? Since you're not running away, then die. Although Night Sorrow was affected by the Great Seal of the Mountains, it was not easy for him to catch up to the leader of the vampire bats. However, he threw the heavenly Samsara halberd at him. The heavenly Samsara halberd, which had already become a king-grade divine artifact and had been strengthened by the ruler stone, was thrown with a grand aura. The leader of the vampire bats, Batfly, immediately felt an overwhelming righteous aura. Master, save me. Batfly, who felt great danger, was clearly a little weak because he had just used his race's innate talent. In terms of speed, he was not as fast as the heavenly Samsara halberd. Seeing that he was about to be caught, he immediately screamed. Master. To be recognized as a master by an invincible divine lord, he must be at least the divine king. That's right, if the enemy didn't have the divine king in their camp, they wouldn't have made such a big move. Night Sorrow heard the leader of the vampire bats, Batfly, and immediately understood some things. At the same time, the experts of the other three races, the soul-devouring beasts, the dark murlocs, and the dark demons were very close. However, just as they were about to arrive, the heavenly Samsara halberd had already killed the weakened Batfly. Dark demon. Soul-devouring beast leader. Wasn't one of you sealed and the other split into countless parts? Seeing the experts of the dark creatures rushing over, Night Sorrow asked in surprise. The leader of the vampire bats, Batfly, was killed by the heavenly Samsara halberd. The Great Seal of Mountains lost control and fell into Night Sorrow's hands, completely losing its effect. Night Sorrow, who had asked this question, discovered that the Great Seal of Mountains had the aura of a human cultivator. He couldn't help but suspect the identity of Batfly's master. He secretly guessed that the other party might be a cultivator from the divine realm. "It's you? Little brat, I, the Dark Demon, will tear you apart today." The leader of the Dark Demons was the Dark Demon statue that Night Sorrow had strengthened and sealed. When he discovered that it was Night Sorrow in front of him, endless dark aura immediately overflowed from his body. "Dark Demon, it's really you. Who was it that let you out? Where is the sky-reaching bone pagoda now?" After confirming that the Dark Demon in front of him was the evil statue in the dark abyss, Night Sorrow continued to ask, wanting to obtain some useful information. "Although you are about to be killed by us, I, the Dark Demon, will not reveal any information to you. Go to hell." The Dark Demon replied with an evil voice and continued, "The two of you, this human in front of us has the power of merit protecting him. We will immediately help Master kill him and help Master obtain everything he has." "Alright. I also have a grudge against him." The soul-devouring beast leader, who had regained the cultivation of an invincible divine monarch, looked at Night Sorrow with hatred in his eyes. "Since you are not saying anything, then there is no point in continuing to exist. Turn everything into power of merit for me." Facing 3 invincible divine monarch-level dark evil creatures, Night Sorrow was not afraid at all. Instead, he was very excited. His cultivation had already risen to the level of a half-step divine monarch through the Rainbow Profound Spirit Pill. However, his power of merit was still a little lacking. Chapter 2686. The only question was whether he could use the power of merit to reach the great circle of the half-step Divine Lord Realm. If he could, Night Sorrow would be able to use the power of merit to reach the Divine Lord Realm. From there, he could use the power of merit to drive other aspects and completely advance to become a Divine Lord. If he could successfully ascend to the Divine Sovereign Realm, he'd be able to head to Sovereign Tianye's territory and participate in the Divine Sovereign Challenge. He'd also be able to obtain the first piece of territory in the immortal divine realm from Sovereign Tianye. With this piece of land, the Night Moon Empire would be able to establish itself in the divine world. "You want to turn us into power of merit? You are just an exalted god and you can't do it." The Dark Demon clearly looked down on Yi Shang. His impression of Yi Shang was still the same as before. Although Night Sorrow had made great progress in his cultivation, the Dark Demon still looked down on him. That's what the vampire bat thought too. Now it has turned into power of merit. A cold smile appeared on Yi Shang's face. At the same time he called back the Samsara halberd. "Do you think it's a good thing to kill the bat? Let me tell you, you are in big trouble this time. But it doesn't matter because you will die in our hands." The Dark Demon said coldly, "Let's attack together. We'll capture him alive and bring him to Master." "Alright. I will destroy his cultivation first." The Dark Murloc leader, who was holding a thick battle sword, bared its fangs in response. It was the first to stab at Yi Sorrow. The slash looked simple, but it tore through the void and pressed down on Night Sorrow's head. It felt as though 10,000 mountains were pressing down on him. "Invincible Sir God, you are indeed capable. But to me it's just a small trick." Night Sorrow, who was holding the Samsara halberd, raised his hand and struck with the forbidden spear. Boom. There was an explosion and the leader of the Dark Murloc saber was shattered. "What? How can this be?" The Dark Murloc leader's battle blade was already infinitely close to a king-level artifact, but it was actually shattered by Night Sorrow's attack. This made it very flabbergasted. At the same time, the Dark Demon and the soul-devouring beast leader immediately gained a new understanding of Night Sorrow's strength and became serious. Dark Fiend snorted coldly and said, "I didn't expect that in just a short few years of not seeing, your strength rose to such a level. And he even has a king-grade divine artifact. So what if you have a king-grade divine artifact? What will shock you is yet to come." Night Sorrow thought to himself, "I still have a Dominator-grade god artifact, but I don't need it to deal with you guys." As he spoke, Night Sorrow immediately used the virtuous dragon-locking formation to imprison the Dark Demon. At the same time he used the Taboo Reincarnation Spear. Although he hadn't activated the 33 Heavens secret combat technique, with Night Sorrow's strength, such a move was enough to bring about a life-and-death crisis to the Dark Demons. What kind of move is this? Before the Dark Demon, who was trapped in the sealed space, could react, he was struck by the forbidden reincarnation spear. He was almost blasted to pieces. After disintegrating, it took a long time for him to reform. However, his strength was greatly reduced. I'm afraid that the virtuous merit god in front of us is not someone we can deal with. Everyone attack him together and inform Master. The dark demon, who had almost been killed by Night Sorrow in one move, said with lingering fear. As soon as the dark demon finished speaking, the 30 to 40 Sir Gods who had come together immediately attacked Night Sorrow. Although Night Sorrow's strength was astonishing and could almost kill one or even a few Sir Gods in one move, it was obviously impossible for him to take the attacks of so many Sir Gods head-on. The situation immediately turned into a situation where Night Sorrow was retreating and fighting at the same time. Night Sorrow, who had the Eye of the Sea Serpent and had learned the mysterious sky-wandering dragon art, was not at a disadvantage in the battle. Night Sorrow. It's Night Sorrow. At this moment, Yun Channy, who had suddenly appeared in the defensive array of Hai Bei City, shouted loudly. To be able to fight so many Sir Gods with just the strength of a high god, Night Sorrow is indeed a rare talent. Ao Qingyun, who was standing at the front of the group, immediately praised Night Sorrow after seeing him persevere under the attacks of so many evil creatures. Hearing Ao Qingyun's unhurried praise, Yun Channy shouted, "Alliance Lord, what's the use of saying such things under such circumstances? Send people to help. No, the Dark Race army is pressing down on us. It wasn't easy for our Hai Bei City to activate the array from back then. If we take the risk of activating it, it might cause great suffering," Ao Qingyun replied with a gloomy expression. Night Sorrow clearly has the strength to fight. Under such circumstances, if we send out some experts, won't we have a chance of victory? Yun Channy's expression changed drastically after hearing Ao Qingyun's refusal. He hadn't expected such a response. You don't understand. The Divine King is behind these dark race creatures. If we take the risk of activating the array, our Hai Bei City will be destroyed with a flip of the hand. I, Ao Qingyun, am not afraid of death, but I can't take responsibility for everyone here. Ao Qingyun, who had already become the city lord of Hai Bei City, said with a sigh. Then think of a way to let me out. I, Yun Channy, can't bear to see my friend fight alone. Yun Channy roared in displeasure. Yun Channy could understand why Ao Qingyun would give up on Night Sorrow and protect everyone in Hai Bei City, but he didn't want to see Night Sorrow fight alone. Channy, I can't fulfill your request. Ao Qingyun's expression was extremely gloomy. Don't tell me your so-called protection of Hai Bei City is to activate the array and struggle at death's door. Now that Night Sorrow is here, we clearly have the strength to fight. Why don't we go out and give it a try? Do you think hiding in the city and surviving forever is a wonderful thing? Yun Channy continued to roar in displeasure. Alliance Master, although Channy is a little impulsive, what he said is not without reason. Brother Night Sorrow will always perform amazingly no matter when or where. I think everyone can go out of the city and fight with him. Zhuang He also tried to persuade Ao Qingyun. Even Ao Qingyun's younger cousin Ao Qingsong said, Cousin, Brother Night Sorrow has never disappointed anyone. Let's fight. That's right. Let's fight. Yun Channy said with clenched fists. Once we activate the array, there's no turning back. The enemy has the Divine King. Even Tianqing was injured by the Divine King. What can we do to fight? Ao Qingyun said with gritted teeth. Everyone's desire to fight was very strong. A few days ago, Long Tianqing had been injured by the enemy's leader in order to rescue the divine sovereign Jin Yuan from the cave abode. This proved that the enemy definitely had the Divine King in their camp. This was also the reason why he didn't dare to open the door. Everyone, leave the city and fight with me. I, Night Sorrow, will not disappoint everyone. At that moment, Night Sorrow, who was fighting with many divine sovereigns, shouted after killing a dozen or so divine sovereigns. Although he wasn't afraid of continuing the battle, if the Divine King appeared, he probably wouldn't be able to maintain his divine essence energy. He wouldn't be able to adjust himself to his best condition and use Tianyun Bao under such a concentrated attack. Alliance Master, open the door. Otherwise I, Yun Channy, will kill myself in front of you. Yun Channy said with a solemn expression when he heard Night Sorrow's roar. Chapter 2687. Sky-piercing Bone Pagoda? Night Sorrow, Jing Yun, and the others in the Clear Sky Pagoda looked at the 9-story bone pagoda in the sky and immediately felt a sense of familiarity. It was the sky-piercing bone pagoda that suppressed the dark demons in the endless bone realm. The dark demons are here, and so is the sky-piercing bone pagoda. Where is Brother Mo Yuqian? Night Sorrow was first stunned when he saw the sky-piercing bone pagoda flying toward him. Then an ominous feeling rose in his heart. At this moment, the sky-piercing bone pagoda that had once recognized him as its master was no longer under Night Sorrow's control. He couldn't sense what was inside the bone pagoda at all. What is this? Ao Qingyun, who had been hesitating whether to leave the city and fight, became even more hesitant when he saw the bone pagoda flying toward them. He was afraid that if he made the wrong choice, he would bring disaster to Haibei City. If that happened, he wouldn't be able to face his father in the afterlife. Sir. This seems to be the sky-piercing bone pagoda in the endless bone realm. A feather god cultivator behind Ao Qingyun, who had entered the endless bone realm before, replied. Sky-piercing bone pagoda? Can someone explain to me what's going on? Let's observe for a while longer. Ao Qingyun's deep gaze locked onto the sky-piercing bone pagoda as he spoke. Alliance Master, what's the point of asking? Night Sorrow is in danger. Let's go out and reinforce him immediately. Yun Tianyi was almost driven mad by the sight of Night Sorrow being surrounded by countless dark evil creatures. No one knows what's going on with the sky-piercing bone pagoda outside. How can we risk opening the city gates? Haibei City might be massacred. Is one person's life more important, or the lives of thousands of cultivators? A trace of anger appeared on Ao Qingyun's face. In his opinion, there was no problem with his choice. Haibei City's defenses were practically impregnable. With such defenses, it wouldn't be a problem to hold out for another 1,000 years. If they could hold out for that long, the God Realm would definitely send reinforcements and exterminate all the dark evil creatures outside. At that time, Haibei City's crisis would naturally be resolved. Alliance Master, I'll say it again. Let me out. You have your choice, Yun Tianyi's choice. If you don't open the door, I'm going to do it. Yun Tianyi turned around and glanced at the surrounded Night Sorrow, as well as the sky-reaching bone pagoda that was glaring at her like a tiger watching its prey. Yun Tianyi placed her sword across her neck. To the Dark Alliance, he who had inherited the Divine King's bloodline was extremely important. Tianyi, what are you doing? You have fused with the bloodline of the Divine King, and your future is limitless. Why are you being so impulsive today? There was a hint of anger in Ao Qingyun's voice. He felt that Yun Tianyi was a little insensible. Night Sorrow is my most important friend. Yun Tianyi cannot watch him fight alone. Yun Tianyi, whose neck was already bleeding, roared loudly. Tianyi, don't do anything stupid. I can still hold on. Night Sorrow, who was surrounded by more than 30 monarchs and had to pay attention to the sky-reaching bone pagoda, only noticed Yun Tianyi's situation after Jing Yun's reminder. Night Sorrow roared in response while feeling touched. Brother Yi, Yun Tianyi, am useless. I can't open the array formation in front of me and fight alongside you. Yun Tianyi roared in grief and indignation. She wanted to cut her own neck with her sword to show that she had done her best. Tianyi, you don't have to do this. You and I will have a chance to fight side by side in the future. These evil spirits before us can't do anything to me. Night Sorrow hurriedly tried to persuade her. If he saw Yun Tianyi commit suicide because of him, it would leave an eternal scar in his heart. Brother Yi. Yun Tianyi's hand trembled. At that moment, Elder Zhuang, he said, Alliance Master, open the array formation. Even if we die in battle, it's better than being cowards. That's right. Cousin, locking Yishang outside like this while we watch from the sidelines isn't something a normal person can do. Ao Qingsong, who had interacted with Night Sorrow before, also spoke in a heavy tone. Enough. Ao Qingyun would rather bear the infamy than open the door today. Ao Qingyun snorted coldly and rejected everyone's suggestion. Fine, I won't open it. Night Sorrow, will turn the tide today by myself. Ao Qingyun didn't believe in himself at all. Night Sorrow was a little angry. If it were him, even if he had to die in battle, he wouldn't watch one person die fighting hundreds of millions of dark creatures. Night Sorrow, your strength is not bad. I hope that you can find an opportunity to escape on your own. The crisis of Haibei City will naturally be resolved by experts in a few years. Don't throw your life away. Ao Qingyun, who was standing on the city wall, tried to persuade Night Sorrow when he saw the terrifying fighting spirit rising around him. You are in the territory of the heartless Divine King, waiting for experts to rescue Haibei City. That is simply a fantasy. Why don't you just hide in the city and deceive yourself? Night Sorrow replied coldly as he used the Black Heaven Wandering Dragon Arc to dodge the attacks of many divine lords. His body's defensive capabilities were astonishing. Although he was hit several times, he didn't suffer any fatal injuries. He only looked a little wretched as his body was bathed in black blood. Most of it was the blood of dark creatures. If it were any other time, Night Sorrow would definitely use the power of merit to disperse the black blood. However, facing so many opponents, he couldn't spare any extra power of merit. Heaven Mystic Technique. Feeling that activating the Trayastrimsa heavenly power of merit to increase his combat strength by 10 times was not enough, Night Sorrow immediately activated the Heaven Mystic technique he had learned along the way, increasing his strength by 13 times. Compared to 10 times, 13 times didn't seem like a huge increase, but in reality that wasn't the case. After increasing his strength by 13 times, Night Sorrow's strength reached a level he had never reached before. Not only did the divine essence in his body surge, but his speed also increased significantly. Ever since the sky-reaching bone pagoda appeared, it has been eyeing me covetously. Tianyun Bao should stay behind to deal with it. My strength has increased to such a level that I can use battle to fuel battle. I need to kill all the evil creatures present. The number of dark creatures outside High Bay City had already reached an uncountable number. However, the only ones that posed a threat to Night Sorrow were the 30-odd divine lords in front of him. There was also the sky-reaching bone pagoda floating in the air. It looked a little evil, but it had been holding back all this time. As he pondered, Night Sorrow prepared to quickly kill some dark creatures to see if he could raise his power of merit to the divine lord level. With this in mind, he used the Eye of the Sea Serpent to avoid a round of attacks from the divine lords. Night Sorrow immediately used the heavenly Samsara halberd to attack the hundreds of millions of high deity and feather god level evil creatures. In the blink of an eye, almost half of the black creatures around High Bay City were burned into golden power of virtue by the raging flames. Countless strands of the power of good karma floated towards Yishan's scene like a magnificent golden firework. Bastard! You bunch of trash, how dare you let a high deity like him act so impudently? Chapter 2688. The Divine King. It's the Divine King's voice. When he heard the furious roar from the sky-piercing bone tower, Night Sorrow immediately determined that there was a God King inside. Who are you? Night Sorrow asked after a short breather. I'm the first master of the sky-reaching bone pagoda. I'm also the one who severed the karma between you and the sky-reaching bone pagoda. The eerie voice came from the sky-reaching bone pagoda again. The master of the sky-reaching bone pagoda sneered. You're smart. After the sky-reaching bone pagoda recognized you as its master, you didn't bring it with you. Otherwise, you would have become my 9th battle servant. So, the people who made the sky-reaching bone pagoda recognize you as its master have all become your battle servants? Night Sorrow didn't mention Mo Qian, but it was obvious that he was asking about him. When the master of the sky-reaching bone pagoda spoke, all the dark creatures stopped attacking. He seemed to have intimidated everyone present. While he was panting, Yishang swallowed a few recovery pills. Haha, don't think I don't know that you're worried about Mo Qian. However, the master of the sky-reaching bone pagoda seemed to know what Night Sorrow was thinking. He summoned, Mo Qian, come out. The rest of you come out too. After the master of the sky-reaching bone pagoda spoke, 9 puppets appeared in the void one after another. The confused Mo Qian was one of them. Brother! Night Sorrow immediately shouted when he saw the unconscious Mo Qian. However, Mo Qian, who had become a puppet god, didn't react at all. The same went for the other 8 puppets. Bastard! Master of the sky-reaching bone pagoda, today is the day you die. Mo Qian didn't respond at all. Night Sorrow was furious. You want to kill me? Easy, just break the sky-reaching bone pagoda. But how is that possible? You're just a high god. So what if you have a king-grade artifact? My sky-reaching bone pagoda has been completely restored to a king-grade artifact. The owner of the sky-reaching bone pagoda controlled the bone pagoda and abruptly sent it crashing towards the defensive formation of High Bay City. After colliding with a thin layer of defense, it immediately suffered a ferocious backlash. However, this Divine King-level attack triggered by the formation was completely ineffective against the sky-reaching bone pagoda. High Bay City's defensive spirit array was hit, and the entire High Bay City shook. Alliance leader, the bone pagoda outside is obviously a threat to High Bay City's defensive array. Under such circumstances, are you still not going to open the door? Yun Qianni spoke again when she saw that High Bay City's defensive array was being shaken by the sky-reaching bone pagoda. The one controlling the sky-reaching bone pagoda is the Divine King. If we go out, we'll just be throwing our lives away. If you stay in the city, you still have a chance. Ao Qingyun's brows were frozen with coldness. Bah! What a coward. You make it sound better than singing, but in the end, you don't have the heart to fight. Yun Qianni, who had lost control a long time ago, scolded disdainfully. Men, help me restrain Yun Qianni and lock her in the dungeon of the city lord's residence. Ao Qingyun, who had been offended, had an ugly expression as she coldly ordered. Let's see who dares to touch me. Yun Qianni was completely infuriated by Ao Qingyun's attitude. So what if we touch you? You've repeatedly offended the alliance leader. Do you still know your place? A horse-faced divine lord behind Ao Qingyun mocked Yun Qianni before using his Dharma treasure to attack and suppress her. At the same time, another divine lord beside him sealed off any possible escape routes that Yun Qianni might have. Why don't you trash and dark creatures have the same ability? Seeing that Ao Qingyun had ordered people to attack her, Yun Qianni directly activated the divine king bloodline in her body and raised her strength to the maximum, prepared to fight to the death. At this point she regretted her decision to follow Ao Qingyun. Seeing that Yun Qianni was about to fight to the death, Elder Zhuang He immediately tried to persuade her. Alliance leader, please show mercy. He has repeatedly offended his superiors. If we don't punish him, we won't be able to stabilize our morale. Ao Qingyun looked coldly at Zhuang He and said, Elder Zhuang He, you are an elder. You should be aware of the current situation. Don't act on impulse like him. Alliance leader Zhuang He is not acting on impulse. It's just that in the current situation he attacked his own people. That's not acceptable. Zhuang He replied in a low voice. Don't tell me that I have to endure his criticism forever? Ao Qingyun's brows were completely covered in frost. She snorted coldly and said, Take Elder Zhuang He away as well. You're such an awe-inspiring alliance leader. I'll settle the score with you later. Night Sorrow had witnessed everything that had happened on the city wall and immediately reprimanded her. You'd better survive the battle first before you talk about anything else. Ao Qingyun, who was glaring at Night Sorrow angrily, replied indifferently. What he said makes sense. You'd better think about whether you can survive first. As soon as Ao Qingyun finished speaking, the sky-piercing bone pagoda's master, who had just demonstrated the sky-piercing bone pagoda's strength, spoke in a sinister voice. He ordered, 9 golems, all creatures of darkness, spare no expense to kill this merit and virtue high god. Understood. At his command, the 9 puppets, more than 30 godlords, and the remaining hundreds of millions of high gods and feather gods all attacked Night Sorrow. Kiki. Let's see how you survive such a powerful attack. The number of godlords under the sky-piercing bone pagoda's master had exceeded 40. The number of high gods and feather gods was uncountable. He felt that with such strength he could completely crush Night Sorrow. Facing the attacks of so many godlords, Night Sorrow took out Tianyun Bao from his spatial artifact. Facing the godlords, he transformed his power of merit into arrows and shot out 3 arrows in a row. Although he didn't use the heavenly cloud arrow, the arrows formed from his power of merit were extremely lethal to the dark creatures. The 3 golden arrows traveled through the dark army as if they were unstoppable, constantly reaping the lives of dark evil creatures and converting them into power of merit. What is this energy? The energy of a sovereign divine artifact? The 30 godlords attacking together were all suppressed by Night Sorrow's arrows of merit. The sky-piercing bone pagoda's master immediately muttered in confusion. You're right. This is a sovereign divine artifact, one that will take your life. At this moment, Night Sorrow took out a golden heavenly cloud arrow and shot it at the sky-piercing bone pagoda. Now that the divine king of the enemy camp had appeared and given him a chance to recover his divine yuan energy, Night Sorrow, who had been holding back all this time, finally exploded. The moment Night Sorrow released the heavenly cloud arrow, the world resonated with it. How can this be? You're just a high god ant. How can you use a sovereign divine artifact? This is impossible. Chapter 2689. At the same time, the owner of the sky-piercing bone pagoda summoned all 9 puppets back into the bone pagoda. He wanted them to help him withstand the impact of the sky cloud arrow. Although the sky cloud arrow was extremely fast, the 9 puppets were connected to the sky-piercing bone pagoda. With a thought from the owner of the sky-piercing bone pagoda, they appeared in the bone pagoda. What? This Night Sorrow actually has a sovereign-grade divine artifact and can unleash power on par with the divine king? Ao Qingyun, who was standing on the city wall, was so shocked that his mouth could not close when he saw Night Sorrow use his trump card, the sovereign-grade divine artifact. Alliance Master, should we activate the array now? A godlord who had just restrained Yun Qianni and Zhuang He asked. It's too late to leave the city now. Ao Qingyun sighed and said, release Qianni and Elder Zhuang He. I've said it before. Brother Yishang never disappoints. Yun Qianni said angrily after being unsealed. From now on, I, Yun Qianni, will never speak ill of anyone from the Dark Alliance again. I, Zhuang He, will also withdraw from the Dark Alliance. Zhuang He shook his head and sighed. Due to his limited cultivation talent, he was still a high god. He had once held a high position in the Dark Alliance, but he no longer had any right to speak. Didn't you just find a new backer? Don't forget it was I, Ao Qingyun, who saved you back then. Ao Qingyun said with a dark expression as he faced the two who chose to withdraw. When he raised his head to look at Yishan again, there was a complicated look in his eyes. At this moment, Night Sorrow's Sky Cloud Arrow had already struck the sky-piercing Bone Pagoda. Although the sky-piercing Bone Pagoda defended with all its might, it was still shaken like a collapsed house. I thought you could unleash a sovereign-grade attack, but I didn't expect you to only be at the Divine King's level. Although the Bone Pagoda was somewhat shattered, the owner of the sky-piercing Bone Pagoda laughed. Then the sky-piercing Bone Pagoda recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, thousands of lightning bolts appeared around him like spiderwebs. These thunderous Night Sorrow felt both familiar and unfamiliar. What was familiar was the aura, but what was unfamiliar was that these thunderbolts were obviously not at the level of a high god, but at the level of a divine king. As long as you don't destroy the entire Bone Pagoda, I can repair it endlessly. The owner of the sky-reaching Bone Tower roared proudly and sent the Bone Tower crashing towards Night Sorrow. Husband, be careful. The sky-reaching Bone Pagoda, a king-class divine artifact, came crashing down. Jing Yun, who was in the clear sky pagoda, immediately warned. In fact, it wasn't just her. From the perspective of Sikong Chuyu and the others, they also felt that the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda was coming at them. However, they had been with Night Sorrow for a long time and were already used to this kind of situation. Don't worry, I'm fine. Facing the crushing sky-reaching Bone Pagoda, Night Sorrow, whose body was constantly absorbing the power of merit, bit his finger. He continuously poured his blood onto Tianyun Bao's bow. After absorbing Night Sorrow's blood, Tianyun Bao, who had once again turned into a bone Bao, rapidly grew flesh and dragon scales. Destroy. When he was attacking just now, Night Sorrow had been worrying about Mo Yuqian. However, on second thought, Mo Yuqian had already been refined into a puppet, so he didn't care anymore. He wanted to destroy the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda first. With a roar, Night Sorrow shot out another heavenly cloud arrow. Buzz. The resonance of heaven and earth caused by this arrow was about 3 times stronger than the previous one. Boom. The heavenly cloud arrow and the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda collided once more. The sky-reaching Bone Pagoda was like rubble that had been smashed by a heavy hammer, scattering in the void. Good. Brother Night Sorrow is indeed valiant. He's invincible. The Horn Race's patriarch Jiao Kong, who was very worried about Night Sorrow, let out a long sigh. Without a doubt, if Night Sorrow had been defeated, his Horn Race might have been exterminated. Brother Yi. Amazing. Yun Qianni, who was watching from the city wall, praised. Then he looked at Ao Qingyun and said, a true expert will have an invincible and fearless aura. You clearly don't have that. It's none of your business. Ao Qingyun replied coldly. Also, do you really think Night Sorrow destroyed the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda? As Ao Qingyun spoke, the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda recovered at a visible speed. Kiki. I said before that you can't destroy the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda. After replying, the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda's master coldly mocked Night Sorrow. Seeing the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda regenerate after such a powerful attack, and its aura was no weaker than before. Yun Qianni, who was on the city wall, clenched his fists regretfully. In the Clear Heaven Pagoda, the Night Moon Race, the Horn Race and Shao Tianxin Race as well as Night Sorrow's friends, were all worried for him. They knew that the attack just now was already the strongest attack that Night Sorrow could unleash. If even his strongest attack did not completely destroy the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda, the consequences would be unimaginable. It's fine. It's not a hopeless situation yet. Sensing everyone's worry in the Clear Heaven Pagoda, Night Sorrow comforted them and began to think of a strategy. If Long Tianqing lost to the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda's master, he felt that it was completely understandable, because this pagoda was really difficult to deal with. At the end of the day, it's still because I'm not strong enough. If I can advance to Divine Lord, I can definitely use Tianyun Bao to unleash an even stronger attack. While pondering, Night Sorrow once again locked his gaze on Divine Lord Darkness, who was suppressed by the 3 merit arrows. He thought to himself that with more than 30 Divine Lords, plus countless High Gods and Feather Gods, he might be able to advance to Divine Lord Merit. Therefore he used the Heavenly Cloud Arrow again to shatter the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda. Night Sorrow took out another Heavenly Cloud Arrow and shot it directly at the Dark Demon who was in battle. Although the Dark Demon was an invincible Divine Lord level dark creature, facing the Divine King level Heavenly Cloud Arrow, it had no ability to resist at all and was directly killed. While absorbing the power of merit converted from the Dark Demon, Night Sorrow summoned back the Heavenly Cloud Arrow and shot it at the Soul-Devouring Beast Leader. Similarly, there was no suspense at all. The Soul-Devouring Beast Leader was also directly killed by the Heavenly Cloud Arrow and turned into a dazzling golden power of merit. After continuously absorbing the power of merit, Night Sorrow's power of merit quickly reached peak High God level. This speed of improvement could be said to be very fast, but Night Sorrow did not feel anything strange. Not good. If this continues, all the dark creatures present will become his nourishment. It is very likely that he will break through to Divine Lord level because of this. Seeing Night Sorrow break through one by one, continuously killing the dark creatures and absorbing the power of merit converted from them, the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda's master said. While controlling the Bone Pagoda to crash into Night Sorrow, the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda's master coldly threatened. If you don't surrender, I will completely destroy Mo Chanchan's divine soul. As the Divine King, don't you find it ridiculous to say such things? Night Sorrow completely ignored the other's words and continued to attack the other Divine Lord level dark creatures. Chapter 2690. As the number of dark creatures gradually decreased, the darkness surrounding High Bay City gradually returned to its original brightness. Even the shadows that shrouded High Bay City also disappeared. Many cultivators noticed this and began to walk up the city walls to watch the battle outside the city. However, Night Sorrow was currently shrouded in a dazzling golden light. Even those who had seen him before could not confirm his true identity. Some of the more trusting cultivators began to ask who the others were. Without a doubt, Night Sorrow had become the hero of High Bay City. City Lord Ao Qingyun's expression darkened. After he became City Lord, he had indeed helped High Bay City activate the array set up by their predecessors. However, he had not killed a single dark creature. Hearing the cheers of the people in the city, jealousy rose in his heart. Just as Ao Qingyun was feeling uneasy, Night Sorrow had already killed all the dark creatures outside the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda. Not a single one was left. After absorbing the power of virtue of dozens of Divine Lords and countless High God and Feather God level dark creatures, his power of virtue had successfully broken through to the Divine Lord level. Although his strength had soared recently, Night Sorrow did not feel uncomfortable. After all, he had already fought against the Divine King and could calmly face a Divine Lord. However, although his power of virtue had broken through to the Divine Lord level, Night Sorrow could not be considered a true Divine Lord. His cultivation, body, and divine soul had yet to reach the Divine Lord level. He needed to cultivate to follow the power of virtue and truly advance to the Divine Lord level. As for the Divine Lord Tribulation, it was not difficult for Night Sorrow. It was only a matter of time before he broke through to the Divine Lord level. Furthermore, it was very likely that he had taken the shortest time to advance from Feather God to Divine Lord in the history of the Divine Realm. I said that if you don't stop, I will kill and erase Mo Chanchan's divine soul. The owner of the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda was completely enraged when he saw countless of his subordinates being killed. His cold and sinister voice came from the Bone Pagoda, sending chills down the spines of those who heard it. Many cultivators watching from the city walls felt as if their heads were about to explode when they heard the demonic voice of the Divine King level. Azure Rock Soul-Splitting Roar. First style, 3 roars break reincarnation. Noticing the state of some of the low-level cultivators in the city, Night Sorrow immediately used 3 roars to break the cycle of reincarnation, cutting off the pressure that the owner of the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda brought to High Bay City. Looks like you're a merit god. No, he's a merit divine lord. He's very virtuous. The words of the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda's master revealed a hint of a conspiracy. No. I'm not thinking about saving people, I'm thinking about killing people. Get ready to come out of your turtle shell. The voice of the sky-split bone pagoda's master gave Night Sorrow a foreboding premonition. In addition, the other party still hadn't attacked Mo Yuqian. He was prepared to use his strongest attack once his power of virtue reached the Divine Lord realm and directly shatter the sky-split bone pagoda. You'd better be prepared to welcome the death of your friends, as well as the misery and suffering of Hai Bei City. The owner of the sky-reaching bone pagoda's voice grew colder and colder. At the same time, the puppet made from Mo Yuqian's soul suddenly floated out from the sky-reaching bone pagoda. It floated towards the defensive array of Hai Bei City. Its speed was not fast, but it made people feel fearful. Not good. Everyone retreat. Seeing the puppet that looked like Mo Yuqian floating towards the defensive array of Hai Bei City, City Lord Qingyun immediately raised his head. The City Lord Ao Qingyun immediately warned loudly. He had a feeling that a great disaster was about to befall him. He guessed that the puppet in front of him should have a very lethal attack power. Brother. At this moment, Night Sorrow sensed that it was indeed Mo Yuqian's soul. He who was originally prepared to use his strongest attack on the sky-split bone pagoda, immediately hesitated. At this moment, the turbid eyes of the puppet that looked like Mo Yuqian suddenly became clear. It transmitted its voice to Night Sorrow. Brother Night Sorrow, as long as this puppet body of mine collides with the defensive array, it will immediately explode. Its power is 100 times stronger than an ordinary king-grade talisman. If you have the ability, immediately destroy the sky-split bone pagoda. Otherwise quickly escape. Brother. I will completely destroy this sky-split bone pagoda. Hearing Mo Yuqian's transmission, Night Sorrow's heart trembled. While he was worried, he spat a mouthful of heart blood on Tianyun Bao and infused the power of virtue into the 3 sky cloud arrows. They suddenly shot towards the sky-split bone pagoda. The 3 sky cloud arrows were shot out one after another at an astonishing speed. Even a divine lord would not be able to see them clearly with the naked eye. They were all aimed at a single point. Bang! 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 Just as Mo Yuqian's puppet was about to reach the defensive array of Hai Bei City, the 3 sky cloud arrows bombarded the sky-split bone pagoda. At the same time that the sky-split bone pagoda's body was shattered, the sky cloud arrows infused with the power of virtue rampaged through the sky-split bone pagoda. How can this be? The sky-split bone pagoda's owner's roar was quickly heard. Not long after his voice fell, a large amount of black gas emerged from the sky-split bone pagoda. Under the attack of the sky cloud arrows, the sky-split bone pagoda was completely shattered and turned into dust. Mo Yuqian, who was originally floating towards Hai Bei City, immediately stopped. The other 8 divine lords who had been turned into puppets by the sky-split bone pagoda's owner, rushed out of the sky-split bone pagoda, their turbid eyes clearing up. Night Sorrow, did you save us? After waking up, these Sir Gods observed their surroundings and immediately understood what was going on. Among them, except for the last divine lord, the rest had seen Night Sorrow challenge the sky-split bone pagoda and recognized him. At this time Mo Yuqian transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. That black evil gas is the owner of the sky-split bone pagoda. Be careful. So you, the divine king, are just a ball of evil gas. Seeing the owner of the sky-split bone pagoda turn into a ball of black gas and fly into the distance, preparing to escape, Night Sorrow swallowed a recovery pill, took out a sky cloud arrow, knocked an arrow and shot towards the black gas. Do you think I'm so easy to deal with? Just as Night Sorrow shot the sky cloud arrow at the ball of black gas, a blurry figure that looked like water ripples suddenly appeared behind Yishang. After it appeared, it turned into a ball of evil black gas and directly entered Yishang's body. Although you can rely on external forces to fight with the Divine King, your Divine Soul is still in the Divine Soul. But your Divine Soul is far from the Divine King's level, right? Prepare to bid farewell to this world. I will take your place. A cold and evil voice sounded in Night Sorrow's mind. Are you trying to strengthen my divine soul and help it reach the Divine Lord level? Feeling the pain of his divine soul being devoured, Night Sorrow, who had shot the sky cloud arrow with all his might, focused his mind to resist the evil gas that had possessed his body. Chapter 2691. Hee, you think too much. I can't be devoured. What awaits you is tragedy. The cold voice seemed to come from the depths of hell. It sounded in Night Sorrow's mind like the explosion of a king-level divine talisman. Even though Night Sorrow's divine soul had been strengthened to the level of the divine king, he still felt like his divine soul was being torn apart. Brother Night Sorrow, be careful. Against it, you must protect your heart. Mo Yuqian knew that his voice would distract Night Sorrow, but he still reminded him, you might have to go through a long process, maybe 1,000 years or even a few reincarnations. But reality only lasts for a moment. Don't be afraid of the passage of time. Brother, your reminder is very important. Night Sorrow replied. He felt that Mo Yuqian's reminder was very useful. If he hadn't said that, he would have been worried that he would miss the chance to save Wu Ling concubine if he fought against the sky-reaching bone pagoda for too long. Brother Night Sorrow, don't underestimate it. It's very scary. Otherwise we wouldn't have fallen for it. Mo Yuqian continued to remind him. In the end, he realized that his emotions had been controlled by the owner of the Sky Bone Pagoda during the battle. Later on, his decisions had been influenced by the other party. Brother, don't worry. Night Sorrow has never lost in a test of willpower. Night Sorrow replied. Mo Yuqian and wholeheartedly fought against the owner of the Sky Bone Pagoda. Strictly speaking, the other party was just a ball of evil energy. Never lost? That's because you haven't met me. The owner of the Sky Bone Pagoda, the evil voice, exploded in Night Sorrow's mind. What right do you have to call yourself me? You're just a ball of waste. Night Sorrow replied as he seriously fought against the owner of the Sky Bone Pagoda. There was no fixed pattern in a battle of divine souls. It wasn't just a battle of divine souls, it was also a battle of willpower. The owner of the Sky Bone Pagoda was a ball of evil energy. It had no emotions and was at the level of the Divine King. It was basically invulnerable. Otherwise, Mo Yuqian and the other unrivaled divine lords wouldn't have fallen for it. Waste gas? Very soon, you will become a mindless puppet, even worse than the waste gas. I have yet to refine the merit divine lord's body. The master of the sky-piercing bone pagoda said evilly as he launched a powerful attack on Night Sorrow's divine soul. Yishang's soul felt like smoke being blown by the wind after being attacked by an outsider. He felt as though his soul was drifting. You want to turn me, Night Sorrow, into a puppet? Such a person doesn't exist. Night Sorrow, who felt his divine soul becoming more and more violent, began to use all kinds of methods to increase the strength of his divine soul to fight against it. In the beginning, Night Sorrow felt like he was holding his breath. He felt like he wouldn't be able to hold on for long, but after a while he gradually got used to the rhythm. Furthermore, under the influence of the power of merit, Night Sorrow's divine soul gradually became stronger, rising towards the level of a divine lord. This increase in strength put a great deal of pressure on the master of the Sky-Split Bone Pagoda. When Yishang's divine soul was about to reach the divine lord realm, the master of the Sky-Split Bone Pagoda launched a fierce attack on Yishang's divine sea. You overestimate yourself. Not much time had passed in the outside world, but Night Sorrow felt like he had been fighting against the master of the sky-piercing bone pagoda for 300,000 years. After 300,000 years of fighting, the strength of his divine soul seemed to have cultivated for 300,000 years. Although he hadn't officially advanced to the level of a divine lord, he wasn't inferior to an ordinary divine king. Night Sorrow, who had been shrinking his defenses, completely released his divine soul at this moment to fight against the master of the sky-piercing bone pagoda. Brother Night Sorrow, nothing will happen, right? After all, the opponent is at the level of a divine king. Jiao Kong asked worriedly in the clear sky pagoda as Night Sorrow's divine soul fought a decisive battle with the master of the sky-piercing bone pagoda. My husband has never disappointed anyone. Nothing will happen to him. He will be the master of the sky-piercing bone pagoda. Sikong Chiyu replied confidently after hearing Jiao Kong's words. She had witnessed everything that Night Sorrow had gone through and had absolute confidence in him. Lin Piaomiao recalled the scene of Night Sorrow's battle outside Tianhuang City and said with certainty, "My husband was born to turn the tide. This test is nothing to him." All right. I can rest assured then. Jiao Kong said with lingering fear. Recently, Night Sorrow had been fighting against people of a higher level than him and had even faced the threat of a divine lord. Jiao Kong could be said to be on tenterhooks. The person chosen by the patriarch was really not a simple existence. On the other side, for Haibei City, the moment Night Sorrow destroyed the sky-piercing bone pagoda, the crisis in the outer city had been averted. Most of the cultivators in Haibei City cheered as they looked at the gradually brightening blue sky outside the city. At this moment, Yin Tianyi shouted. Many people knew that the person who had saved them was Night Sorrow and started shouting Night Sorrow's name. Everyone please keep quiet. Currently Brother Night Sorrow is still fighting. The cheers were a little loud. Mo Qianqian, who was in the form of a puppet, reminded everyone. Hearing this, the cheering crowd in the city gradually calmed down. They locked their gazes on Night Sorrow, who was surrounded by a golden aura and a black aura, and silently prayed for him. Don't worry, you won't be able to affect Night Sorrow. If I'm not wrong, Night Sorrow has completely taken the initiative. At this moment, Long Tianqing suddenly flew over from afar. She used the power of her soul to check on Yishang's condition, and then she said something to everyone. Phew. It's good that Brother Night Sorrow is fine. Mo Qianqian heaved a long sigh of relief when he heard Long Tianqing's words. However, Long Tianqing looked at Mo Yuqian with a serious expression. Your condition. They were old acquaintances who had known each other for many years. You're right. My divine soul will be destroyed. Not only me, but the other 8 invincible divine lords will also be destroyed after the Bone Pagoda's master dies. We're now connected to the Bone Pagoda's master. Mo Qianqian said solemnly. In other words, only one of you and Night Sorrow can survive. Am I right? Long Tianqing's voice was trembling. She had used all her strength to protect Divine Lord Jinyuan from the sky-piercing Bone Pagoda's master. Now, she was powerless to prevent a tragedy from happening. I hope that Brother Night Sorrow survives. It's a blessing for the realm of the gods that he has the initiative. Mo Qianqian said with emotion. That's right. Rather than living like this, we might as well be completely destroyed. Another invincible divine lord controlled by the sky-piercing Bone Pagoda also said. To these geniuses, what had happened in the past few years was like a nightmare. Let's see if Night Sorrow can completely kill the other party. Chapter 2692. In the end, the golden light and the black light formed 2 dragons that coiled around Night Sorrow's body and fought against each other. When the golden dragon was first formed, it was not as thick as the black dragon. However, as time passed, it gradually grew stronger and started to gain the upper hand. Night Sorrow, who was fighting against the heaven-reaching Bone Pagoda, was in a similar situation. He went from being passive at the start to gaining the upper hand. Impossible. How is this possible? I am the Divine King. How can I lose to a high god like you? The owner of the heaven-reaching Bone Pagoda said in disbelief when Night Sorrow launched his final attack. You are wrong. In terms of divine soul, I am already a divine lord. As he resisted, Night Sorrow's divine soul reached the level of a lower divine lord. After his divine soul reached the level of a divine lord, the owner of the heaven-reaching Bone Pagoda was completely suppressed. Very quickly, Night Sorrow, who had gained the upper hand in the fight, successfully annihilated his opponent. After completely killing the owner of the heaven-reaching Bone Pagoda, Night Sorrow found a problem. After the owner's divine soul was killed, another deity C formed beside his deity C. This deity Ocean was in a completely unconscious state. Is it really an unconscious deity C or a trap left by the owner of the heaven-reaching Bone Pagoda? Night Sorrow used his divine soul to sense for a while but did not find the owner of the heaven-reaching Bone Pagoda. He immediately used his divine soul to enter the deity C to check. When Night Sorrow's divine soul entered the deity C, he found that he had gained control of the deity C. It was as if the deity C had recognized him as its owner. What's going on? Will I have 2 deity Cs in the future? Night Sorrow felt the state of his divine soul and wondered. After testing it, he found that he indeed had 2 deity Cs. Each of them could use the power of the divine soul. However, the new one was slightly weaker than the original. The 2 divine souls could use the power of the divine soul. They could merge together or do 2 things at the same time. It was very magical. This should be a good thing, right? As Night Sorrow was thinking, he suddenly had a thought. He found that the new deity C's divine soul could control Mo Qian and the other invincible divine lords. Brother? Night Sorrow used this divine soul to try to communicate with Mo Qian. Brother Night Sorrow? You are fine? Mo Yuqian asked doubtfully as he felt the voice in the depths of his soul. He felt that this was a bit strange. In the past, it was always the master of the Bone Pagoda who used this method to communicate with him. I'm fine. The master of the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda should have been completely destroyed. Night Sorrow deity C, he continued. After he disappeared, deity C, deity CC, deity C. I deity, deity CC, deity. Day deity. It seems that even if it is destroyed, the 9 of us won't be completely destroyed. God deity, deity God deity God, deity of the hand, deity pagoda. Deity, deity, deity soul. Deity, deity, deity of the pagoda. God got it. Bone? After listening to Mo Qian's story, Night Sorrow said, "Brother, don't worry. I will let you and the others regain your freedom." Brother Night Sorrow, thank you. I didn't expect that I, Mo Qian, would regain my freedom in my lifetime. Mo Qian said with some emotion. After the Heavenly Bone Pagoda's master advanced to the Divine King level, he completely erupted. Not only did he disperse Night Sorrow's imprint, he also controlled an invincible divine monarch and released all the evil creatures around High Bay City. He also controlled the 9 invincible divine monarchs to launch a tide-like attack on High Bay City. Now that Night Sorrow had destroyed him, not only did he save High Bay City, he also saved the 9 invincible divine monarchs. Brother and the others, please wait a moment. I will make some arrangements and find a way to restore your freedom. Night Sorrow deity C told Mo Qian and the other 8 invincible divine monarchs before coming back to his senses. He said to his family in the Clear Sky Pagoda, "The Heavenly Bone Pagoda's master has been destroyed by me. This storm is over." Good. Little 13, you really didn't disappoint us. Hearing Night Sorrow's familiar voice, Yang Lei, who was originally very nervous, immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Sikong Chuyu, Lin Piaomiao and the others, who were very confident in Night Sorrow, also heaved a sigh of relief. The others in the Clear Sky Pagoda were also the same. After all, Night Sorrow had become their backbone now. Night Sorrow's grandfather, Yiling Huan, was sure that he had overcome the crisis. He coughed and said, "Now that the crisis is over, everyone should seize the time to cultivate. So that we don't have to hide here the next time we encounter a battle." Yes, grandfather's words make sense. Jing Yun will work hard to become stronger. Among the people present, Jing Yun, as a divine monarch, was very strong. As long as she improved a little more, she would be able to fight side by side with Night Sorrow. I won't fall behind either. Lin Piaomiao, who had the sovereign bloodline in her body, also did not want to fall behind. She realized that after the sovereign bloodline appeared, her cultivation speed was doubled with half the effort. Her strength increased at an extremely fast speed. Good. All of you are good. But you are all a female army. The men of the Night Moon Empire have to work hard. Yiling Huan said with a smile. These words made some of the people present think of Yi Xiaoluo, Yi Lingxi and Yi Xiaoke, who had gone out to train. Now all of them had gone out to train and there was no news of them. I wonder how the 3 children are doing now. Thinking of Yi Xiaoluo and the others, Datura could not help but sigh worriedly. Their talents are so outstanding. No matter where they are now, they should be able to develop well. Shueshi replied and said, "I believe that when our immortal divine territory is established, they will rush back. Yes, I believe that the 3 of them will come back strong." Lin Piaomiao thought of her son Yi Xiaoke. Although she was worried, she was similarly confident. Because not only was he Night Sorrow's son, but he also might have inherited his sovereign bloodline. In terms of talent, he should be ranked in the top in the entire divine realm. While the women were lamenting, Night Sorrow was currently conversing with Long Tianqin, inquiring about her injuries. He also told her what sect Master Xiao Tianxian said before. Hearing that there was news of the Heavenly Luan Myriad Transformations pill, Long Tianqin was very happy and said, "Now Big Brother Yuan's condition is already stable. As long as we get the Heavenly Luan Myriad Transformations pill, he can completely recover. Next, you let Brother Qian and the rest regain their freedom first." "Alright, I have the same intention." When Night Sorrow heard this, he did not hesitate and controlled the second divine sea to release Mo Youqian's divine soul control. Chapter 2693. Completely recover? Not only will we regain our freedom, but we will also have the chance to completely recover? Become a cultivator with flesh and blood? One of the puppet-turned-invincible divine lords exclaimed in disbelief when he heard Night Sorrow's words. Today's events had given him hope of being reborn after countless years of despair. This was something he had never dared to dream of. If we can really recover, I suggest that we all work for Brother Night Sorrow. This is the only way we can repay him. Mo Qianqian, who was also very excited, said. He now felt that helping Night Sorrow in the Endless Bone Realm was the best decision he had ever made in his life. It was the exact opposite of nurturing Wuxin. Night Sorrow hurriedly shook his head when he heard Mo Qianqian's words. "Brother, you're too polite. If not for your help in the Endless Bone Realm, I wouldn't have been able to obtain the Genesis Essence to strengthen my body. Without the Genesis Essence, I would have already died in battle in the endless bone realm. How could I be where I am today? Little brother Night Sorrow, there's no need to be so polite. Let alone these small favors, even if it's a bigger favor, what you've done today is more than enough to repay. The Heavenly 1000 Transformations pill will definitely allow you to continue taking risks. That will be a new favor. Emo Chanchan said politely. He felt that Night Sorrow had already done him a great favor by shattering the heaven-reaching bone tower and saving him. If he accepted the Heavenly 1000 Transformations pill but did nothing, he wouldn't be able to overcome the barrier in his heart. That's right. Brother Night Sorrow, there's no need to be so polite. Whether or not you have the Heavenly 1000 Transformations pill, I, Xiong Nanyue, will follow your lead in the future. Xiong Nanyue, the tallest puppet among the 9 Divine Lords, said in a deep voice. After he spoke, the remaining 7 Divine Lords also spoke one after another, saying that they would follow Night Sorrow no matter what. When they had been controlled by the master of the heaven-reaching bone tower, their lives had been worse than death. Night Sorrow had saved them today, which was akin to giving them a new lease of life. Even the coldest person would show some gratitude. If no one has a place to go, Night Sorrow will establish the immortal divine domain after breaking through to the Divine Lord realm. If you have family or sect, I suggest you choose to return. Looking at the few invincible Sir Gods who had been turned into puppets, Night Sorrow said. These words were equivalent to giving them true freedom, allowing them to choose their future path according to their wishes. When the few invincible Sir Gods present heard Night Sorrow's words, they felt very comfortable. Seeing that the matter had come to an end, Long Tianqing asked, Night Sorrow, when can we head to the secret realm? At the very least, I'll have to wait until I'm a divine sovereign. I heard that it was the sovereign's Tao Right temple. Although the sovereign's essence has been taken away, there are still other resources there. I'm afraid that it will cause a large-scale struggle. Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to Long Tianqing. He didn't want the matter of 9 Heaven Divine Palace to be exposed. If the Divine King or even the sovereigns came to fight for it, things would get troublesome. After all, Xiao Tianxian had only told this to him. That makes sense. We'll head there after you've stabilized your strength. Long Tianqing nodded and transmitted her voice. I was too anxious. From the looks of it, with your strength you can definitely defeat Ling Yun. Shall I bring you to find him? All right. Senior Tianqing, Night Sorrow has the same intention. Night Sorrow and Long Tianqing discussed this matter for a while before looking at Mo Yuchen and the others. If you don't have a place to stay for the time being, you can enter my spatial artifact to cultivate. After Night Sorrow spoke, Mo Yuchen and the others, who had no choice, entered the Clear Sky Pagoda. This spatial artifact is incredible. The God's spiritual energy is so strong, and the spatial acceleration is at least 10 times faster. Mo Yuchen was shocked to discover that Night Sorrow's Clear Sky Pagoda was comparable to the sky-reaching Bone Pagoda. After all, Night Sorrow was just an ordinary feather god a few years ago. It's indeed incredible. Even the Divine King, who has accumulated a lot of experience, might not have such a spatial artifact. Long Tianqing, who had entered the Clear Sky Pagoda to observe, was an array formation expert. She also praised. Ah, you're too kind. Night Sorrow was just lucky. Night Sorrow introduced everyone in the Clear Sky Pagoda before coming to the area where the Divine King of the Golden Crow tribe, Jinye, was in seclusion. Lord Night Sorrow, you're here. When he saw Yishang appear, Jinye, who had been meditating and recovering from his injuries, immediately stood up and spoke respectfully. No need to be so polite. Just call me Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow replied and asked, Do you know why I didn't summon you when I was fighting against the dark creatures? This should be because Lord Night Sorrow had absolute confidence in defeating the other party? Jinye asked doubtfully. He didn't omit the word Lord. In fact, I didn't have absolute confidence in winning. But if you took action, I wouldn't be able to obtain a lot of power of virtue. I wouldn't be able to advance my power of virtue to the Divine Lord level. I wouldn't be able to break through to the Divine Lord level in other aspects. This can be considered as seeking fortune in danger. Night Sorrow explained. He couldn't be bothered to argue about how to address Jinye. Since Jinye called him that so easily, he didn't fuss about it. Jinye looked at Yishang and asked, Lord Yishang, is something the matter for you to come over now? Next, I'll be following Senior Long Tianqing to find an enemy and fight to the death with him. Now that Senior Long Tianqing is injured, I need to use the time on the road to cultivate and prepare to advance my cultivation to the Divine Lord level. So I need to trouble you to protect everyone's safety on the road. Night Sorrow said slowly. Jin Ye smiled and said, "Isn't this my duty after leaving the Golden Crow ancient realm?" "Alright. Then I'll have to trouble Mr. Jin Ye." Night Sorrow said politely when he saw Jin Ye agree. "It's no trouble, no trouble. It's my honor to be able to do something for Night Sorrow and form good karma." Jin Ye was extremely shocked when he thought that Night Sorrow could defeat the Divine King. After all, there wasn't even an example of a Divine Lord defeating the Divine King in the Divine Realm. Moreover, Night Sorrow's cultivation speed also broke his understanding. Jin Ye felt that one day Night Sorrow might be strong enough to sweep across the entire Divine Realm. "Mr. Jin Ye, you're too polite. Since that's the case, I'll have to trouble you. I still have some things to take care of, so I'll go first." Night Sorrow said to Jin Ye and walked out of the Clear Sky Pagoda because he noticed that Yun Tianyi and Zhuang He had already walked out of Hai Bei City. After exiting the Clear Sky Pagoda, he went up to them. "Ah, Brother Yi. People always say that a scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. This sentence is simply a perfect fulfillment for you. It hasn't been long since we last met, and not only can you rely on your own strength to kill so many Divine Lord-level dark creatures, you can even fight against the Divine King." This really shocked everyone. Chapter 2694. "Haha Tianyi, since when did you become such a bootlicker?" When Yi Shang saw the two of them approaching, he smiled and replied politely, "Elder Zhuang He, I'm sorry. Long time no see. Night Sorrow, you're already close to the peak of the celestial realm. Even the Divine King is no match for you." Zhuang He smiled and continued, "I'm no longer an elder of the Dark Alliance." "What's going on?" Night Sorrow asked. "Sigh. Alliance Master Ao Qingyun is too narrow-minded. Tianyi and I have fallen out with him. We have nowhere else to go, so we're going to join Night Sorrow. What do you think?" Zhuang He said with a smile. He was still a high god at the moment, but his aura was extraordinary. "Haha, if the two of you choose to join us, I, Night Sorrow, will welcome you with open arms." Night Sorrow mentioned the immortal dominion with a smile. His goal was to build a dominion that was on par with the sovereigns. This required a lot of talent. Especially trustworthy people, he needed a lot of them. He welcomed Zhuang He and Yun Tianyi to join him. Yun Tianyi immediately smiled. "Brother Yi, I didn't expect you to leave Tianyun School and start your own sect. That's great, we brothers can make a name for ourselves. Making a name for ourselves is a must. But if we build a dominion, we won't be targeted by the sovereigns. If we want to expand, we'll have to go against the Divine King's forces. Although we can fight against the Divine King, we don't have many forces under us. If we go to war, we won't be able to do anything." Yi Shang voiced his concern. Currently, the immortal Divine Realm lacked talents. That's indeed a problem. But it's not hard to get close. As long as we have the resources, many cultivators will join us. Zhuang He pondered for a moment and said, "How big is the immortal dominion's territory?" "I'm not sure yet. Once I'm done here, I'll go look for Hegemon Tianyi. As for how big it is, that will depend on his mood." Night Sorrow said with a smile. To him, it didn't matter how big the immortal domain was in the early stages. As long as he could stabilize the Night Moon Empire and his friends, that was enough. "I heard that Ling Yun is quite talented. Among Divine Lords, he's considered very hard to deal with." When Night Sorrow mentioned Ling Yun, Yun Tianyi said worriedly, "Now that I can even fight against the Divine King, killing Ling Yun shouldn't be too difficult." Upon hearing Yun Tianyi's words, Night Sorrow asked in confusion. After all, Yun Tianyi and Zhuang He had just witnessed his battle with the owner of the sky-reaching bone pagoda on the city wall. "I'm not sure what exactly happened, but I heard that Ling Yun was extremely evil. It seems that no one who went against him had a good ending," Yun Tianyi said with uncertainty. Before this, he didn't know that Night Sorrow had a feud with Ling Yun, but he had heard about him. It was clear that Ling Yun had a certain reputation in the realm of the gods. The last time I saw him was not many years ago. Back then he was a Divine Lord. No matter how strong he is now, he shouldn't be that strong, right? Night Sorrow felt that his cultivation speed had already created a legend in the realm of the gods. No matter how fast Ling Yun's cultivation speed was, it was unlikely that he was stronger than him. Even so, you still have to be careful. After all, in the realm of the gods, there are too many cases of people failing miserably. Elder Zhuang He reminded him solemnly. He had also heard some things about Ling Yun and felt that something was amiss. "All right. I'll be extra careful," Night Sorrow replied. He looked into the distance and asked, That city lord Ao Fang's son Ao Qingyun, right? Seeing Ao Qingyun rushing over with his men, Yun Tianyi said with disdain, "It's him. I really misjudged him in the past. After all, he's the descendant of a wise man. There are some things that should be forgiven if it's possible." Knight Sorrow was originally a little annoyed that Ao Qingyun did not send help. However, he felt that the other party's choice was actually pardonable, so he did not take it to heart. He was confident that he would definitely win. He did not even call out Jin Ye, but the other party did not know his trump card. "Ah, Brother Yi, hearing about you is not as good as meeting you in person. I've heard so much about you. Ao Qingyun did not open the door just now out of consideration for the safety of the hundreds of millions of people in Haibei City. Please don't take it to heart, Brother Night Sorrow." Night Sorrow was communicating with Yun Tianyi and Zhuang He through voice transmission when Ao Qingyun, who was thousands of miles away, greeted him. "Hello, Brother Ao. Night Sorrow admires you and your father very much," Night Sorrow said with cupped fists. One would not slap a smiling face. Although Ao Qingyun had acted unfavorably toward Yun Tianyi back then, nothing had happened in the end, so he did not want to take it to heart. Brother Night Sorrow has saved the entire Haibei City. As the city lord, Ao Qingyun invites Brother Yi to the city for a chat and give the people a chance to see your glory. After getting closer, Ao Qingyun said politely and continued, "I've already asked my wife to prepare a banquet. Why don't you, Brother Yi, Brother Yun, and Elder Zhuang come to my residence for a chat? We've already fallen out. What's there to chat about?" Upon hearing Ao Qingyun's words, Yun Tianyi retorted angrily. Zhuang He was more magnanimous and advised, "Tianyi, don't speak like that. After all, the city lord of Qingyun City once saved our lives." Then he looked at Night Sorrow and said, "Brother Night Sorrow, if it's not too urgent, why don't you have a meal before leaving?" "All right." Since the city lord of Qingyun City invited me and Elder Zhuang He said so, then Night Sorrow will impose on you for a day. Night Sorrow glanced at Yun Tianyi, indicating that there was no need, and then replied. Ao Qingyun's eyes lit up when he heard that. He made an inviting gesture and said, "Brother Night Sorrow, please." "All right. Let's go." At this time Long Tianqing, Jin Ye, and the rest were all in the Clear Heaven Pagoda and did not appear. Only Yun Tianyi and Zhuang He were by Night Sorrow's side. He replied and walked in front. When they approached the city gates of Haibei City, a large number of cultivators had already gathered at the city walls. When they saw Night Sorrow coming, they immediately shouted the words "Hero." Ao Qingyun smiled when he saw the reaction of the crowd, and he said, "This is Brother Yi Shang who saved my seaside city from danger. Everyone must remember today's kindness." Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow. When the crowd was shouting, some of the people who had some contact with Night Sorrow discovered that he was the Night Sorrow who had mingled in the Sea and Sky Bazaar back then and caused a ruckus at Treasure Gathering Pavilion. Immediately they felt more familiar and spread the word among the crowd. Hearing the crowd's discussion, some of the other cultivators looked at Night Sorrow with even more different gazes. Some people even began to shout for Night Sorrow to be the city lord. Ao Qingyun's face changed slightly when he heard that, but he suppressed it very well. Chapter 2695. City Lord? Upon hearing Ao Qingyun's words, Night Sorrow glanced at him and said, "I'm not interested." Ao Qingyun responded and didn't continue speaking. Yun Tianyi whispered, "I'm afraid he has an ulterior motive." Seeing that Yun Tianyi was still muttering, Zhuang He immediately transmitted his voice, "Tianyi. After all, we're working together. There's no need to make things so awkward. After today, we won't have any more disputes with the alliance leader. Let's not continue today." "All right. I'll give Elder Zhuang face and won't say anything else. But I feel that Ao Qingyun must be up to something by inviting us to his residence for a meal." Yun Tianyi replied with a gloomy expression. "If it's up to something, I think the city lord wants to show that he knows Brother Night Sorrow. This can be considered as getting closer to him." Zhuang He continued to transmit his voice to Yun Tianyi. Yun Tianyi grunted and said, "I hope so." At this time, Ao Qingyun had been chatting with Night Sorrow. In the eyes of outsiders, their relationship seemed to be very close. Walking back into Haibei City, where he had once stopped, Night Sorrow felt very emotional. However, he had no intention of revisiting the old place. Accompanied by Ao Qingyun and the rest, Night Sorrow, Yun Tianyi, and Zhuang He slowly walked into the city lord's residence. This city lord's residence was the one that Shangguan Yun had used back then. When they arrived at the backyard of the city lord's residence, the food and wine were already prepared. Ao Qingyun hurriedly let Night Sorrow take a seat. City lord, you should sit in the main seat. If Night Sorrow sits anywhere, won't he be stealing the limelight? In the face of Ao Qingyun's invitation, Night Sorrow declined and casually found a seat to sit down. Yun Channy and Zhuang He sat beside him. Haha, brother Night Sorrow, let's sit together now. There are some things that I have to explain. When you were fighting the dark creatures just now, I was thinking for the sake of the people of Seaside City. That's why I didn't activate the formation. After sitting at the main seat, Ao Qingyun hurriedly explained. Then he said, you also know that there aren't enough experts in the city. Facing the Divine King, it's very likely that all of them will be killed. Even if I have to bear the infamy of inaction, I cannot let the people of High Bay City take such a risk. Since it's all in the past, let's not talk about it anymore. Night Sorrow replied indifferently. As far as he was concerned, it didn't matter what the other party chose. However, he wouldn't associate himself with the other party. Good. Brother Yi is so straightforward. Ao Qingyun laughed boldly. He looked to his left and right and said, why don't you pay your respects to the great hero of our High Bay City? Yes. Understood. The two divine lords who had attacked Yun Channy and Zhuang He first each toasted Night Sorrow before raising their cups to apologize to Yun Channy and Zhuang He. After they made peace, Ao Qingyun said, Brother Night Sorrow, what kind of bow did you use in the battle? Why does it feel like it's even stronger than a king-grade divine artifact? I say, City Lord Ao, isn't it a little impolite to inquire about someone else's divine artifact like this? Yun Channy, who had already fallen silent, immediately glared at Ao Qingyun when he heard his question. Night Sorrow's divine artifact was a life-saving measure. How could he casually inquire about it? Ao Qingyun smiled awkwardly when he heard Yun Channy's words. He said, it's Qingyun who took it for granted. I'll punish myself with 3 cups of wine. After drinking 3 cups of wine, Ao Qingyun paused for a moment before continuing, now that High Bay City's crisis has been resolved, I wonder where Brother Night Sorrow plans to go next? Are you still going back to Tianyun School? I heard that the Cloud Immortal continent is currently embroiled in war. I wonder if it's true. Extraterrestrial demons have infiltrated the Cloud Immortal continent. They are indeed embroiled in war. Night Sorrow had the power of merit. When Ao Qingyun said this, he could sense that something was amiss. He seemed to be trying to get information out of him. He responded and continued, I might not go to Tianyun School. Instead, I'll go to Tianyun School to cultivate in the area ruled by Tianyun. So that's how it is. Ao Qingyun's eyes flashed with surprise when he heard Night Sorrow's words. Then he returned to normal. He asked the servant, why isn't Madam's best 3 lifetimes cake served today? City Lord, Madam should still be making it. After all, there's too little time. One of the maidservants immediately replied. Hurry her up, Ao Qingyun said with a gloomy expression. Hearing this, the maidservant immediately ran out of the courtyard where everyone was eating. Not long after, she returned to the courtyard with a tray of exquisite pastries. He reported, City Lord, the 3 lives 3 generations cake is ready. Good. Why aren't you serving it to the guests? Ao Qingyun glared at the maidservant and ordered. Yes. The maidservant, who was reprimanded, quickly ran to Night Sorrow and the others and gave each of them a piece of the cake. What kind of cake is this? Is it very special? Yun Channy asked nonchalantly as she looked at the 3 lifetimes cake placed in front of her. Haha, since I value it so much, it's naturally not ordinary. Ao Qingyun smiled proudly and said, only my wife knows the recipe and method of making this 3 lifetimes cake. After eating 1 piece of this cake, it will immediately increase a cultivator's comprehension ability. It will also lead the consumer into an ethereal world. Enter an ethereal world? Zhuang He immediately asked curiously when he heard Ao Qingyun's words. Yes. After eating a piece of 3 lifetimes cake, one's mind will immediately enter a world called the Cloud Wilderness where one can experience 3 lifetimes. It's very mysterious. Ao Qingyun replied. She continued, don't underestimate this 3 lifetimes cake. It's extremely helpful for cultivation. It's beneficial for cultivation? When she heard that, Yun Channy said disdainfully, it's just a piece of cake. How can it have such a great effect? Channy, don't doubt it. It's just that mysterious. Ao Qingyun smiled and said, if you don't believe me, try it and see how effective it is. Fine, I'll try it. I'm not afraid that you'll poison it. Yun Channy said angrily as she grabbed a piece of 3 lifetimes cake and ate it. After eating the pastry, Yun Channy's eyes quickly became blurry. Before long he fell into a deep slumber. Night Sorrow, who was sitting beside Yun Channy, called out to him softly but realized that there was no response. He asked worriedly, Channy should be fine, right? He's fine. He's definitely fine. And he'll definitely benefit from it. Ao Qingyun patted her chest and promised. After Ao Qingyun said that, Yun Channy actually shed tears. Not long after, she smiled again. About an hour later, she finally woke up from her unconscious state. Channy, how do you feel? Night Sorrow immediately asked when he saw that Yun Channy had woken up. I really experienced 3 lifetimes. After experiencing all that, I feel that my Dao heart has become more stable and my comprehension ability has increased significantly. Yun Channy, who was originally very suspicious of Ao Qingyun, said slowly. I knew that this cake is very mysterious. Chapter 2696. 3 Lives 3 Worlds Cake? Night Sorrow glanced at City Lord Ao Qingyun and nodded. Alright, I'll give it a try. With that, he took a piece and popped it into his mouth. Great. Brother Night Sorrow, you're really a straightforward person. Enjoy the taste of 3 Lives 3 Worlds. If nothing goes wrong, you'll get a great harvest. A trace of a smile appeared on Ao Qingyun's face when he saw Yi Shang eat the 3 lifetimes cake. Why do I feel like this guy's smile is up to no good? Yun Channy sent a voice transmission to Zhuang He when he saw Ao Qingyun's expression. You must be thinking too much. The alliance leader shouldn't be that kind of person. Zhuang He had always had a good impression of Ao Qingyun. After all, he was the son of the old city lord Ao Feng, and he had indeed saved many of Haibei City's geniuses. I hope so. Yun Channy sighed in his voice transmission. Channy, be careful. Ao Qingyun is hostile. At that moment, the Divine King's memories in Yun Channy's body suddenly reminded him. Yes, Patriarch. Yun Channy responded and sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. Brother Yi, Ao Qingyun might be plotting against us. However, Night Sorrow didn't respond. Clearly, he had already entered the 3 Lives 3 Worlds cake state. In fact, that was the case. After eating the 3 Lives 3 Worlds cake, Night Sorrow began his first life. He had experienced this before, but the feeling that the 3 Lives 3 Worlds cake gave him was too real. In this first life, Night Sorrow was a fisherman. He didn't have a single family and spent his days in a boat on the river, looking like he had nothing to do. In Night Sorrow's subconscious mind, he was an extremely hard-working person. Faced with a situation where he had nothing to do, he kept thinking of ways to change the situation. However, no matter how hard he tried, there seemed to be no change. Moreover, the situation became worse and worse. Gradually, the fish in the river all became demons. He went from fishing to being chased by fish. Moreover, no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't get off the boat. They could only flee on the river. In the end, because the fish spirit was too powerful, he was swallowed into the stomach of a big fish, and his situation became even more sullen. It was simply too heart-wrenching. Would I, Night Sorrow, feel so aggrieved? Trapped in the fish's stomach, Night Sorrow's mood became extremely depressed. However, he was only an ordinary person here. He didn't have any divine essence force in his body, and he couldn't use the power of his divine soul. The torment in his heart was too great. Elder Zhuang He, Ao Qingyun wants to deal with us. But Brother Yi has fallen into a deep sleep and can't wake up. Yun Channy, who called out to Night Sorrow but did not get a response, knew that he had entered the 3 Lives cake state. She immediately sent a worried voice transmission to Zhuang He. Channy, you're probably overthinking things. Zhuang He glanced at Ao Qingyun and saw that he was chatting happily with the people around him. No, absolutely not. Elder Zhuang He, can't you see that his aura has changed? Yun Channy said somewhat angrily. I don't feel anything strange. Zhuang He smiled. His smile was a little strange. You're Ao Qingyun's man. No wonder you keep speaking up for him. Yun Channy immediately said angrily when she saw Zhuang He's strange smile. All this time she felt that Zhuang He was on the same side as her. He knew what was right and what was right. She didn't expect Zhuang He to completely change his attitude at this time. I Zhuang He am the alliance leader's man. You only realized it now. Aren't you a little too slow? Zhuang He laughed and didn't send a voice transmission. Instead, he directly replied. Yun Channy, oh Yun Channy, you've been dancing with me. Now that Night Sorrow has fallen into a deep sleep, Let's see where you can escape to now. At this time, Ao Qingyun's expression darkened as he slammed the table. Yun Tiany's cultivation talent was very good, but she only barely broke through to the Godlord realm with the help of the Divine King's bloodline. She was no match for Ao Qingyun and his subordinates. Ao Qingyun, so you invited us for a meal because of your wild ambitions? Yun Tiany said angrily. At this time Night Sorrow was in a deep sleep. He felt a chill down his spine. Ah! A half-step Godlord actually dares to wander around with a sovereign divine artifact. You're courting death. Ao Qingyun's eyes turned from their original black to red, looking extremely evil. You're not the original alliance leader. What are you? Yun Tiany asked in shock when he saw Ao Qingyun's change. Ah! Your dark alliance has always been jumping around in my territory. I was only busy trying to break through to a higher realm in the past, so I didn't explode. Otherwise, how could you have saved so many evildoers? After Ao Qingyun's voice turned cold, it made people tremble. At this time it wasn't just him. Zhuang He and the others' eyes also gradually turned from black to red. You're Wu Xan? Yun Tiany asked with a face filled with fear when he heard the other party's words. Night Sorrow was in a deep sleep. If the other party was really Wu Xan, he had no chance of winning. Since you've guessed it's me, why don't you kneel and beg for mercy? Wu Xan, who had Ao Qingyun completely under his control, threatened with a cold smile. Bah! Yun Tiany would rather die in battle than kneel to a beast like you. Yun Tiany said angrily. Wu Xan was clearly the main culprit behind the destruction of his family. How could he kneel when he hated him so much? Ah! Not kneeling? That's not up to you. Wu Xan, who was controlling Ao Qingyun with his divine spirit, released his god domain. Ao Qingyun, who was originally a godlord, actually released his king-level god domain. Under his pressure, everyone present knelt. You're not here in your true form. Why are you pretending? Faced with the king-level god domain's pressure, Yun Tiany immediately activated his bloodline to resist it. It doesn't matter whether you're here or not. What matters is that you can't withstand my pressure. Night Sorrow, who is trapped in the 3 lifetimes tribulation, can't withstand it either. The sovereign divine artifact is mine, Wu Xan. Wu Xan, who was controlling Ao Qingyun, laughed proudly. I'm afraid you're celebrating too early. At this time, Jin Ye walked out of the Clear Sky Pagoda with Shao Kong's help. He released his god domain to help Yun Tiany resist the other party's god domain. The middle-level divine king of the Golden Crow clan? You've hidden yourself well. When Night Sorrow fought against the sky-piercing Bone Pagoda's owner, you didn't even show up. Wu Xan smiled coldly when he saw Jin Ye. There's still Long Tianqing. Why didn't you come out? Wu Xan, you despicable, shameless, and ungrateful villain. Long Tianqing, who walked out of the Clear Sky Pagoda, immediately rebuked Wu Xan angrily when she thought of how he had swindled resources from the Jinyuan Divine Lord and turned around to harm Hai Bei City. Aha, so what if I'm despicable and shameless? So what if I'm ungrateful? In the divine world, strength speaks for itself. Chapter 2697. Wu Xan, you think you can take on 2 Divine King with this body of yours? I think you're overconfident. Long Tianqing's face turned cold when she saw that. After she appeared, she completely suppressed Wu Xan's divine territory. Haha, you're really ignorant and stupid. Why did I lead you here? Isn't it because I set up a king-level formation in the city? Wu Xan laughed and shook his head. Night Sorrow's luck is indeed outstanding, but he doesn't have a brain. Now he's trapped in the 1000 tribulation nightmare. Isn't it 3 lives, 3 worlds? Hearing Wu Xan's words, Yun Tiany immediately worried about Night Sorrow. Ah, you're really naive. If I didn't give you the real 3 lives, 3 worlds cake, how would he fall for it? Wu Xan laughed. Yours is 3 lives, 3 worlds, and it's good for cultivation. He'll be trapped in the nightmare forever. You shouldn't be called Wu Xan. You should be called shameless. Hearing Wu Xan's words, Yun Tiany immediately rebuked him. At the same time he felt sorry for Night Sorrow. If it weren't for the good feedback he brought, Night Sorrow probably wouldn't have eaten the poison cake. So what if I'm shameless? If you like it, I'll change my name to Shameless. At the same time, Wu Xan wantonly laughed and ordered, open the 3 Divine King Great Array. The 3 Divine King formations? Long Tianqing and Jin Ye's expressions turned grave when they heard this. They knew about the king-level defense formations of Hai Bei City. However, they had never heard of the other 3 king-level defense formations and couldn't figure out what they were. Ah, now you're scared? It's too late. After Wu Xian gave the order, the entire city lord's mansion changed its appearance. Long Tianqing, Jinye Yin Tianyi, and Night Sorrow were all trapped in a huge stone prison. This stone prison was a king-level defense formation. It was like a hollowed egg with no exit at all. Let me try attacking. Being trapped inside the array formation, everyone naturally would not allow themselves to be captured without putting up a fight. Jin Ye immediately condensed divine essence energy and bombarded the stone prison's walls. However, his attack was like hitting cotton. There was no response at all, not even the slightest sound. How could this be? Although Jin Ye was the divine king, he had never seen such a strange spell formation before. His expression became even more solemn. This looks like the heaven-shrouding sun formation. It said that only the creator of the world can break it. Long Tianqing, who also had an unsightly expression, was clearly more knowledgeable than Jin Ye. She voiced her opinion. Hearing this, Wu Xian smiled and replied, Long Tianqing, as expected of a third-generation elite of the dragons, you have good insight. But so what if you know? You'll never be able to break this formation. Right now, my true body is already on the way. When my men and I arrive, all of you will die. Wu Xian, there's a saying that goes, those who commit too much injustice will bring about their own destruction. You'll die miserably in the future. Recalling Wu Xian's actions, Yun Tianyi gnashed his teeth in hatred. However, he did not have the ability to fight back, so he could only suppress the anger in his heart. Even if I die, it will be a long time in the future. In less than 3 days, my true body will arrive. At that time, all of you will suffer a fate worse than death. Wu Xian ridiculed everyone and said proudly, when I obtain the Dominator divine weapon and experience the Dominator law within, my strength will definitely increase by leaps and bounds. It's even possible for me to break through to the Dominator rank sooner. This Yishang is really a boy who gives out treasures. He's a psychopath. We don't need to pay attention to him. Let's see how Night Sorrow is doing. Yun Tianyi disdainfully said to Wu Xian and turned to look at Night Sorrow. At this moment, Night Sorrow was placed on a stone bed by Long Tianqing. He looked extremely frightened as he slept, his expression somewhat malevolent. Brother Yi, who has fallen into a deep sleep, is probably suffering from an attack on his spirit. Otherwise it wouldn't be like this. Yun Tianyi judged. This was the judgment made by the divine king in his body. Otherwise, with his eyesight he would not be able to see anything. Yes. Night Sorrow is suffering from an attack on his spirit. Wu Xian's methods are not simple. Long Tianqing said worriedly when she saw Night Sorrow's expression. Normally, in order to survive such an attack, one's spirit must be extremely powerful. I hope Lord Night Sorrow can survive. Jin Ye's words were also filled with worry. Along the way he had seen Night Sorrow's performance. As the divine king he was full of admiration. According to my understanding of Brother Yi, he's not someone who is easily tricked. Why is it like this today? Yun Tianyi, who continued to observe Night Sorrow, said in puzzlement. Maybe it's because he defeated the dark evil creature and relaxed, so he wasn't vigilant. Jin Ye sighed. Brother Yi is like this now. The alliance leader and the elders should all be under Wu Xian's control. Why did things develop like this? Thinking of the alliance leader Ao Qingyun and elder Zhuang He, Yun Tianyi felt very upset. At this moment he thought of the incident on the city wall and thought to himself that he should have thought of the alliance leader's abnormality. Ao Qingyun had a righteous personality. It was impossible for him to choose to bide his time under the circumstances. We'll be fine. Everything will be fine. Brother Night Sorrow is the person who created the world. As long as he wakes up, we can leave this place. At this moment, Xian Jizi walked out of the clear sky pagoda and said, Yes, Brother Yi seems to have ascended from the lower realm. He's the same as Sovereign Tianyi, a person who created the world. Hearing Xian Jizi's words, Yun Tianyi's face immediately became excited. Obviously, if Night Sorrow wasn't the person who created the world, they wouldn't have the ability to break the formation at all. What they needed now was for Night Sorrow to wake up. Night Sorrow is the person who created the world? Wu Xian, who was standing outside the formation and watching the situation inside, immediately became serious when he heard Xian Jizi's words. But then he calmed down and said, So what if he is? If he doesn't wake up, it's useless no matter how powerful he is. At the same time his main body sped up and rushed toward Hai Bei City. Because the place where Wu Xian originally cultivated was not the Wu Xian divine realm and was rather far from Haibei City, it would take a few days. In these few days, Long Tianqing and Yun Qianni took care of Night Sorrow in every way possible, but he still didn't wake up, which made everyone a little anxious. After all, Night Sorrow was equivalent to carrying the lives of everyone present on his shoulders. If he didn't wake up, not only would Long Tianqing, Jin Ye, and Yun Qianni suffer misfortune. Night Moon Dynasty, the Horn Clan, Xiao Tianxuan's family, as well as Night Sorrow's group of friends, they would all become fish on the chopping board. Husband, hurry and wake up from your nightmare. Chapter 2698. Chiyu don't call hubby. His current situation is very dangerous. Jing Yun, who also walked out of the vast heaven pagoda, reminded. She was clear that people who fell into a nightmare were most afraid of external disturbances. Okay. I won't say any more. Sikong Chiyu responded. Seeing Night Sorrow's expression was very hideous, and his head was covered in sweat. Taking out a handkerchief, he gently wiped him. The others stood by the side, sighing repeatedly. Ah! Night Sorrow's strength isn't much, but his luck is indeed pretty good. Not only does he have a sovereign-ranked divine artifact, but his wives and concubines are also as beautiful as flowers. All of you listen well. Very soon you will all become my slaves. Wuxin, who used his divine soul to suppress Ao Qingyun, provoked when he saw Night Sorrow's beautiful wives walk out of the vast heaven pagoda. Stop dreaming. When hubby wakes up, you will die without a burial ground. Hearing Wuxin's provocation, Lin Piaomiao immediately responded. Observing Lin Piaomiao, Wuxin praised, Remarkable, remarkable. Your bloodline talent is simply heaven-defying. I must have you and sleep with you. With just the likes of you, you're not worthy at all. Lin Piaomiao said disdainfully. Wuxin said energetically, whether I'm worthy or not, you have to try before you know. Beauty, this seat will arrive very soon. You better get ready. Get lost. I don't talk to dead people. Lin Piaomiao scolded and ignored Wuxin. Haha, personality. I like it. After Wuxin said this coldly, a smile appeared on his face. He sensed that his main body was already not far away. Wuxin's main body seems to be here. Night Sorrow hasn't woken up yet. What should we do? Wuxin was silent. Looking at Long Tianqing, who was Night Sorrow, he said. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Jin Ye said. Although he did not have much contact, he felt that Night Sorrow would not be so easily dealt with. That's all we can do. Long Tianqing nodded and did not say anything else. Although her array formation attainments were very high, this array formation could not be broken by those who did not split heaven and earth apart. It was not something that could be broken. Everyone quietly waited for Wu Xin, but their hearts were a bit uneasy. I have arrived. Why aren't you all kneeling down and worshipping me? The people in the array waited for a long time before Wu Xian's cold voice suddenly sounded. He's here. Everyone, including Long Tianqing and Jin Ye, felt immense pressure when they heard Wu Xian's voice. Clearly, Wuxin's strength was above Long Tianqing's and Jin Ye's. Those who kneel and await their punishment don't die. Those who resist will have their souls destroyed. After Wu Xian said this, no one responded. His cold voice sounded again. You'd better keep those words to yourself. We're all divine king. What do you have to show off? Jin Ye immediately responded to Wu Xian's words. He was one of the stronger ones on their side, so he naturally stood out at the crucial moment. You're no match for me at all. After sizing up Jin Ye for a moment, Wuxin proudly said, a piece of trash like you is no different from a divine king in front of me. There's no difference. Let me out and we'll fight. Jin Ye roared. Want to come out and fight? You'd better enjoy the feast that I've prepared. Wu Xen smiled maliciously and ordered, throw all the things that I brought into the array. Yes. After Wu Xian gave the order, several invincible divine lords transported several bottles into the array one after another. After that, they exploded in the array and gradually formed a red and green poisonous fog. Very poisonous. Everyone bring Night Sorrow and hide in the vast heaven pagoda. Although Long Tianqing did not recognize this poisonous fog, she sensed it with her divine soul power and determined that it was not simple. Ah, this is called myriad poison miasma. I obtained it in another world. Even a divine king or a king-grade divine artifact can't hold on for long. Prepare to die. Seeing Long Tianqing let everyone hide in the vast heaven pagoda, Wu Xian immediately sneered. What? What should we do? Although she looked down on Wu Xian, Yun Qianni felt that what he said should not be false. She immediately did not know how to face it. I, the Divine King, have never faced this kind of poisonous fog before either. Don't know how to resist, Jinya said with some headache. Long Tianqing moved and said, I'll try to set up an array within an array to isolate the poisonous fog as much as possible. It's no use. The array that you set up can't block the myriad poison miasma at all. Prepare to welcome death. Wu Xian outside sneered repeatedly. Seeing that everyone did not have any temper, he continued, that girl that I took a fancy to just now, have you considered it now? Get lost. I won't bother with a beast like you. Lin Piaomiao replied without any trace of politeness. What should we do? Looking at Lin Piaomiao, Xikong Chuyu's expression was very solemn. What to do? Of course, break the turtle shell, then go out and behead that beast Wu Xian. Right at this time, Night Sorrow's voice suddenly sounded out in the array. Husband, you're awake? Hearing Night Sorrow's voice, Xikong Chuyu's eyes immediately lit up. In reality, not just her, the others in the array formation also all heaved a sigh in relief. Clearly, he already became everyone's backbone. Not considered awake. One of the divine souls is currently transcending his so-called calamity. Night Sorrow opened his mouth to explain. Turns out, what he was transcending was a newly generated divine sea. It did not have much effect on him. From the beginning until now, he had always been awake. After slowly standing up, Night Sorrow stared outside the array formation and said, Wu Xian, you're finally here. I've already waited for you for a long time. You actually woke up. Seeing Night Sorrow stand up, Wu Xian was somewhat in disbelief at first. But following that he said, so what if I woke up? It's just suffering the torment of the myriad poison miasma together. You're wrong. I didn't wake up, but I've been waiting for you to arrive all along. Night Sorrow held the Samsara heavenly halberd in his hand and replied to Wu Xian, preaching to everyone, all enter the vast heaven pagoda. With me around, Wu Xian can't stir up any waves. Good. Brother Yi. With your words we can set our minds at ease. When Yun Qianni heard Night Sorrow's words, she immediately entered inside the vast heaven pagoda with a smile. All right then. Long Tianqing and Jin Ye hesitated for a moment and also followed into the spatial artifact. Although they were the Divine King at present, they definitely could not help much. Looking at Night Sorrow, Wu Xian revealed a cold smile and said, didn't expect that you have two divine seas. Good, very good. Just nice, can let this seat study it. Want to study my divine seas, you have to live on. Night Sorrow replied and used the Samsara heavenly halberd to bombard the wall above his head. Chapter 2699. Accept the baptism of the infinite poison miasma? We don't have such unique hobbies. The Samsara halberd hit the wall but did not have any effect. However, Night Sorrow did not panic. He thought for a while and put away the Samsara halberd. After activating the Tianxian secret skill to increase his strength, he blasted the hand of splitting heaven and earth toward the wall. With a boom, the enclosed space formed by the sky-shrouding formation shattered like an eggshell. You're the one who split heaven and earth? Seeing Night Sorrow break the sky-shrouding formation in an instant, Wu Xian, who originally thought that victory was in his grasp, changed his expression immediately. He did not expect Night Sorrow to wake up so quickly, nor did he expect Night Sorrow to break the sky-shrouding formation in one move. What does it have to do with you whether I split heaven and earth or not? Wu Xian, as the saying goes, one who is unjust is doomed to destruction. I have been looking forward to challenging you for a long time. Today I will seek justice for Brother Mo Chanchan, Sir God Jinyuan, and the others. Night Sorrow, who rushed out of the sky-shrouding formation with the clear sky pagoda and left the infinite poison miasma, floated in the air and stared at Wu Xian. At the same time, the two divine King Long Tianqing and Jin Ye walked out of the clear sky pagoda one after another. On the other side, Wu Xian had a strange smile on his face. Behind him stood about 20 Sir Gods. Among these Sir Gods, 3 were invincible Sir Gods and the rest were ordinary Sir Gods. In comparison, their lineup was not as good as Night Sorrow's. However, Wu Xian smiled strangely and said, today none of you will be able to leave. So what if you break the sky-shrouding formation? There are surprises waiting for you. After Wu Xian finished speaking, the entire governor's mansion suddenly changed its appearance and turned into the 9 Serenities Hell. Countless ferocious ghosts with disheveled hair pounced on Night Sorrow and the others from all directions. What kind of means is this? Seeing that these ferocious ghosts were basically Sir Gods, Jin Ye, who spat out a mouthful of flames, asked in confusion. It seems to be the 9 Serenities ferocious ghost formation. Wuxia once said that there are 3 great arrays in the city. This should be the second one. Everyone be careful. The one who answered Jin Ye was the knowledgeable Long Tianqing. After she finished speaking, she took out a kasaya that emitted a red glow from her spatial artifact. After she put it on, she silently chanted the name of Buddha. After Long Tianqing chanted the Buddhist mantra, countless golden swastikas appeared on her kasaya and shot towards the attacking phantoms. These swastikas were extremely large in number, like golden flowers scattered by a heavenly maiden. After shooting out, the first few malicious ghosts were quickly dealt with. However, as soon as the evil ghosts at the front were destroyed, the Divine Lord-level evil ghosts at the back immediately swarmed out. After Long Tianqing's kasaya resisted for a while, the golden light on it gradually dimmed. I'm afraid this won't work. I won't be able to hold on for much longer. We still need to completely break the formation. Sensing that something was amiss, Long Tianqing said solemnly. In fact, she was originally one of the super geniuses of the dragons, but she had been too occupied with the matter of the Divine Lord Jinyuan over the years and had not put all her energy into cultivation. Although she was the Divine King, her strength was relatively weak. The 9 Nether Malicious Ghost formation has an endless number of malicious ghosts. Although they are basically all at the Divine Lord level, they have the advantage in numbers. Just wait to be slowly exhausted to death. Seeing Long Tianqing's performance, Wuxia, who had already left the formation, laughed complacently. Wuxia, I'm a shameless villain. Wuxia must have been blind to have spent so much resources to nurture you back then. Wuxia's unbridled manner angered Wuxia, who was in the clear sky pagoda, and he came out to curse loudly. Wuxia, oh Wuxia. You old fart, you can only blame yourself for being blind if you believe me. After Wuxia walked out of the clear sky pagoda, Wuxia immediately ridiculed him. Then he said disdainfully, if you weren't blind, how could you have become like this? Wuxia, a person like you will definitely end up in an incomparably miserable state. Wuxia was furious, but he was not very good at scolding people. With that mouth of yours, it's better if you don't talk nonsense with me. If you have time, go deal with a few more malicious ghosts. Could it be that you only know how to fight with your mouth? Wuxia did not give up. Wuxia was so angry that the puppet god trembled, and he did not say anything for a while. At this time, Night Sorrow walked to Wuxia's side and comforted him. Old brother, don't waste your breath on a person who is about to die. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. In the future, his soul will be destroyed and you will become immortal. Old brother Night Sorrow is right. Old brother is too stubborn. Wuxia, who was still angry, calmed down a little. Looking at Wuxia Night Sorrow, he suddenly said, thank you for preparing so much power of virtue for me. If the malicious ghosts are really as endless as you say, then I'm afraid that I will become the Divine King here. I'm afraid your brain is damaged, right? Don't think that just because you came from the lower realm, you are invincible in the God realm. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Wuxia's mouth revealed a disdainful smile. You don't believe me? Then open your dog eyes wide. Night Sorrow interrupted Long Tianqing and Jin Ye, who were bitterly resisting the endless malicious ghosts. He took out the heavenly samsara halberd and shot out the inferno demon that contained the power of virtue at the malicious ghosts. The sky was filled with golden power of virtue, and the flames immediately covered the entire formation. The malicious ghosts were not afraid of being burned by the flames, but the power of virtue was different. Burned by the power of virtue, most of the malicious ghosts were instantly converted into power of virtue and flew toward Night Sorrow. Absorbing the power of virtue in front of Wuxia, Night Sorrow smiled and said, these ghosts, come as many as you can. In fact, Night Sorrow hadn't been idle when the malicious ghosts had first appeared. He'd killed one of them and discovered that he could convert it into merit power. He'd immediately relaxed and felt that the array formation before him wasn't much at all. Bastard. Using the power of virtue to attack and then killing the malicious ghosts to absorb the power of virtue. The 9 Serenities malicious ghost formation does not work on him. Wuxia, who was standing outside the formation, saw Night Sorrow's performance and was so angry that his body trembled. He snorted and ordered, we can't just watch his strength grow infinitely. Close the 9 Serenities Malicious Ghost Formation and activate the Confinement Space Formation. Trap them all inside. Yes, Lord Divine King. After Wuxia gave the order, the 3 invincible Sir Gods behind him immediately obeyed and activated the Confinement Space Formation that had been set up long ago. The 9 Serenities Malicious Ghost Formation was closed and the Confinement Space Formation was activated. The scene before Night Sorrow and the others immediately changed. Chapter 2700. What array formation is this again? Seeing the fierce ghosts all disappear and the entire space becomes silent, deathly silent, Night Sorrow opened his mouth to ask. Long Tianqing glanced at Night Sorrow, brows furrowed slightly and said, "The array formation in front of us, I can't make out its name either. But it's definitely not simple." And as the finale array formation, it's definitely not simple. Night Sorrow replied, then opened up the sea serpent's eye and carefully observed the array formation in front of them. He was clear that among everyone present, apart from himself and Long Tianqing, the others should not have studied king rank array formations. Carefully observing for a while, Night Sorrow's expression suddenly became solemn and he said, "Not good. This area that we're in is shrinking non-stop. If my guess is right, it will crush everything in the array formation in the end." Let me see. Jin Ye, who originally did not have any thoughts, immediately observed seriously when he heard Night Sorrow's words. After looking for a while, he said with a deep look, "Indeed so. Although the space in front of us looks very big, enough to accommodate millions of people. Looking at the current speed, we won't need a year and we'll completely have no space to live. Although with their strength, as long as there was a bit of space they could survive, this array formation was clearly able to completely compress space. Let's split up and take action, see if we can find a way to crack the array formation." Roughly figuring out this array formation's knack, Long Tianqing looked at Night Sorrow and Jin Ye. At the current rate of shrinking, they would completely lose the space to live after a year. But nobody could be sure whether the shrinking speed of space would have a change or not. Hence, the time left for them was not much. "Okay, let me take a look, I can see through the loopholes of this array formation." Night Sorrow responded and transmitted his voice to everyone in the vast heaven pagoda. "The situation right now is somewhat dangerous. But everyone, don't worry, I'll think of a way to resolve it." Just as he was about to have his own territory in the divine realm and thoroughly settled down, such a crisis appeared in front of him again. He felt very sorry for his family. "Husband, we believe in you. Don't overthink it." Sikong Chuyu immediately responded gently. She knew what Night Sorrow was thinking. Then Yang Lei said, 13, don't worry. If you can't find a way, take out your ruler artifact and destroy the space in front of you. You don't say this method might really work. Hearing Yang Lei's words, Night Sorrow smiled and nodded. If he couldn't find a way, breaking the formation by force was indeed the only choice. Don't worry about us, everyone believes in you. Seeing that Night Sorrow was still thinking about his family in such a dangerous situation, Jing Yun, who had just blended in with him, responded with a smile. Originally, she had lost her entire family and felt very lonely. Now that she had completely integrated into the Night Moon family and found a sense of belonging, she felt that facing difficulties with everyone was much better than living alone. Without any suspense, other than the two of them, the other members of the Yi family all spoke up. They did not mind the difficulties in front of them. Furthermore, they had unlimited trust in Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow smiled when he saw everyone in his family act this way. Then he looked for a way to break the formation with Long Tianqing and Jin Ye. After using the Sea Serpent's Eye to observe the formation thoroughly, Night Sorrow did not find any clues. Thus, he looked at Long Tianqing and asked, Senior Tianqing, did you find anything? I did find something, but it's not good news. Long Tianqing looked at Night Sorrow and sighed. I found that this formation should be broken from the outside. This is also the ingenuity of this formation. That's right. If the person who created this formation had left a way to break it, this formation would not have qualified to be a king-level formation. Furthermore, it was used as the final formation by Wuxia. Jin Ye nodded with a deep gaze. At this moment he was rather depressed. After leaving the ancient Golden Crow realm, he realized that he had not been able to protect Night Sorrow at all. Fortunately, their relationship had become much closer, and he had completed the task that Kim Hong had given him. It seems that Ninth Senior Sister's prophecy has come true. We really can break the formation. Unable to find a way, Night Sorrow voiced his opinion. If there's no other way, we can only use brute force. Long Tianqing agreed. Then she continued, however, a king-level formation is known for its suppression. It will definitely be very difficult to break it. With our strength, we might not be able to do it. Whether it's feasible or not, we have to try. It's better than waiting for death. Let me try first. Jinya was an impatient person. As soon as he finished speaking, he took out his copper cauldron and released flames that blasted at the wall in front of him. Haha. You guys really want to die too slowly. You still want to add fuel to the fire. Seeing Jinya attack the wall with flames, Wuxin, who was drinking tea and watching from outside, put down his teacup and laughed wantonly. As soon as he finished speaking, the wall, which hadn't been damaged by Jinya's attack, suddenly shrank by a few dozen meters. After the wall shrank, the originally spacious space suddenly became extremely oppressive, making it difficult for everyone to breathe. So attacking the formation's wall will cause a backlash. I was too impatient. I've let everyone down. Jinya, who had just attacked the wall, saw the wall shrink, and his expression changed greatly as he apologized. It's okay. If you didn't attack, we would have. It's all the same. Night Sorrow hurriedly comforted him. Although the wall shrank by a few dozen meters and everyone was in a bad mood, this wasn't Jinya's fault. No, it's my fault. Jinya sighed and said, I was too impatient and didn't think about the consequences. At that time, Night Sorrow should have used his Dominator-level divine artifact and used the strongest attack we could release. That way, even if the wall shrank, it would prove that it was impossible to break the formation with brute force. It wouldn't be like this. That's the logic, but it's already happened. There's no use in regretting it. Right now, we need to think of the most feasible solution. Being trapped in this confined space made him feel very anxious. However, Night Sorrow still maintained his calm at this moment and prepared to discuss the most feasible solution with everyone. I think Jinya is right. Our only hope should be the Dominator-level divine artifact in your hands. Long Tianqing looked at Night Sorrow and then looked at the wall that was slowly shrinking. She said, however, our safest choice is to let you cultivate for a period of time and strive to become a monarch god. I feel that you won't be able to open a way out with just the strength of a high god. Senior Tianqing's words are reasonable. However, there's another way. That is for you or Jinya to use Tianyun Bao and see if you can unleash an even stronger attack. Chapter 2701. According to Night Sorrow's judgment, Long Tianqing and Jinya as the Divine King were definitely stronger than him. If they could use the Tianyun Bao, they might be able to achieve unexpected results. This won't do. I can't accept the sovereign grade artifact. Jinya was very moved by Night Sorrow's words. He didn't think that Night Sorrow would trust him so much. However, he immediately refused. He was too embarrassed to accept it. Long Tianqing was the same. She said seriously, Night Sorrow, the sovereign grade artifact is very precious. You can't give it to anyone else at any time, because that might be handing over your life. Aren't we handing our lives to each other right now? Right now we're all bound together for good or ill. Yishang smiled and continued, at a time like this, no matter what, we can't just stand by and wait for death. If there's a way, we have to try it. You two don't have to be so polite. Jinya felt his body tremble. He said, Brother Night Sorrow, I Jinya will recognize you as a friend from now on. I'll treat you no differently than any other Golden Crow race member. A friend in need is a friend indeed. I Night Sorrow also recognize Brother Jinya as a good friend. Yishan smiled as he extended his fist and bumped it with Jinya's. Outside the formation, Wuxin sneered when he saw Night Sorrow and Jinya. Ah, you two are really interesting. How about this, you two become sworn brothers of different surnames. This way you don't have to ask to be born in the same year, month and day, but you can ask to die in the same year, month and day. No, this kind of person doesn't understand feelings. I Jinya am willing to fight together with a heroic person like Brother Night Sorrow even if I die in battle. Being disdained by Wuxin, a trace of anger appeared between Jinya's brows. He said coldly, Brother Night Sorrow, give me the bow. Okay, take the bow. Night Sorrow didn't hesitate and handed the Tianyun Bao over. Long Tianqing wanted to stop him, but she swallowed her words. She felt that there was no need to suspect that Jinya was up to no good under such circumstances. Tianyun Bao. Good Bao. Who would have thought that I, Jinya, would one day have the chance to use a sovereign artifact? Holding the Tianyun Bao in his hand, Jinye felt a sense of heroism rise in his chest. He immediately prepared to shoot at the wall. He had witnessed the scene of Night Sorrow shooting the sun with his bow, so he knew that Tianyun Bao could use it even without an arrow. At this moment, Night Sorrow handed over a heaven cloud arrow and said, "Since you've used a sovereign great god artifact, use your strongest attack." After Jinye received the sky cloud arrow, Night Sorrow sent a telepathic message to Jinye, "Infuse Tianyun Bao with your blood. You'll be able to activate it better." Blood infusion? You won't let it recognize you as its master, right? Jinye, who was holding the Tianyun Bao, looked at Night Sorrow and asked, That won't happen. Infusing your blood will only make Tianyun Bao stronger. It's not enough to make it recognize you as its master. I think that it won't recognize you as its master unless you have the strength of a sovereign great god artifact." Night Sorrow told Jinye about infusing Tianyun Bao with his blood and told him that it wasn't a problem that he was worried about. "Alright, I understand." After hearing Night Sorrow's words, Jinye immediately cut his wrist and infused Tianyun Bao with his blood. In the process of absorbing the blood, the heaven cloud bao gradually grew flesh and blood from the shape of a bone bao. Seeing flesh and blood appear on Tianyun Bao's body, Jinye immediately became excited and said, "The effect is very obvious." "It's not that obvious. When I infused my blood, the aura of the flesh and blood was stronger than it is now." Night Sorrow discovered that after Jinye infused his blood, Tianyun Bao's flesh and blood had the aura of a tiger and leopard. It didn't have dragon blood or dragon scales. After explaining, he said, "Brother Jinye, stop. I'll infuse my blood while you draw the bao." "Alright. Brother Night Sorrow's talent is definitely better than mine. You do it." Every sovereign great god artifact was very mysterious. Jinye had heard of them before. He immediately stopped and gave the opportunity to Night Sorrow. After Night Sorrow cut his finger, he immediately infused Tianyun Bao with his blood. After Night Sorrow's blood infused Tianyun Bao's flesh and blood, it immediately became even stronger. Finally, a layer of dragon reverse scales grew on Tianyun Bao's surface that was even stronger than normal dragon scales. "The effect is very good. Brother Jinye, you can try attacking the wall." Seeing Tianyun Bao's changes, Night Sorrow confirmed with satisfaction. "Good. Watch me draw the bao and shoot." Upon hearing Night Sorrow's words, Jinye immediately swallowed a pill that could temporarily increase his strength. He also used a secret technique to raise his condition to its peak. Then he knocked the heaven cloud arrow on Tianyun Bao and pulled the bowstring. "Lord Divine King, the other party has a sovereign great god artifact. The array won't be pierced through, right?" After Jinye used the sovereign great god artifact to shoot the arrow, an invincible divine lord behind Wuxia immediately asked worriedly, "It shouldn't be." Wuxia replied uncertainly. Then he confidently said, "But even if they can charge out of the array, it doesn't matter. This Divine King has even more terrifying trump cards waiting for them." "Yes, Lord Divine King, your plans are flawless. We are in awe." One of the Divine Lords immediately flattered. "I can't say that my plans are flawless, but there shouldn't be any suspense when dealing with them. After all, the divine world doesn't just rely on wits. It also relies on true strength." Wuxia smiled. Although Night Sorrow had a sovereign great god artifact and two divine kings, he didn't care at all. Clearly he still had a trump card. While Wuxia and the others were talking, Jinye had already done his best to draw the bao and shot the heaven cloud arrow. The instant the heaven cloud arrow shot out, a violent explosion sounded in the void. As expected of a sovereign great god artifact, its power is indeed shocking. Long Tianqing, who watched the heaven cloud arrow shoot into the wall, couldn't help but praise it. She secretly thought that if this kind of attack couldn't break through, then they probably wouldn't have a chance to break out of the array. Jinye, who was originally very excited, suddenly suffered a strong backlash and fell to the ground. However, his eyes were fixed on the heaven cloud arrow that was shot out. In fact, he wasn't the only one. Night Sorrow and everyone in the Clear Sky Pagoda all locked their gazes on the Tianyun Bao that flew out. Everyone was hoping for a good outcome. After all, if nothing unexpected happened, this was their only chance. Boom. At this moment, under everyone's expectant gazes, the heaven cloud arrow suddenly bombarded the wall of the array. In the blink of an eye, the area where the wall had been struck exploded, and an endless amount of light blossomed from it. This light was even more intense than the golden crow illuminating the world. It made it impossible for people to see the situation clearly. Chapter 2702. Night Sorrow, what's going on? Did you manage to break it? Long Tianqing, who couldn't see what was going on due to the golden light, immediately asked worriedly when she saw Night Sorrow take a deep breath. I'm afraid we're in big trouble this time. Night Sorrow said solemnly. After opening the clam dragon's eye, he saw that the heavenly cloud arrow was embedded in the wall after hitting it, like a fishbone stuck in the throat. The toughness and strength of this formation's wall was unbelievable. Big trouble? Does this mean that even the sovereign-grade divine artifact couldn't break the barrier in front of us? Long Tianqing's heart sank when she heard Night Sorrow's words, and she asked worriedly. That's right. The heavenly cloud arrow couldn't break the barrier in front of us. Yishan explained, if I'm not wrong, the wall will shrink even further this time, and the space left for us will definitely be even smaller. Sigh. How can this be? How can this be? Jin Ye, who had just shot the heavenly cloud arrow, had a look of disbelief. When he pulled the Tianyun bow apart, he truly felt the pleasure of controlling everything. He didn't expect that he wouldn't succeed in breaking the formation. There's no point in sighing now. We should continue to think of a way. Time must be tight now and we can't waste any time. Although they were in a difficult situation, Night Sorrow's eyes didn't show any despair. Yes, Night Sorrow is right. We must pull ourselves together. Let's think of a way together. As Long Tianqing said this, the wall in front of them rapidly shrank. After about 10 breaths, the wall had completely shrunk. This time it shrank by 100 meters. After shrinking by more than 100 meters, the entire space had shrunk by about 1/5. Ah! A bunch of fools who overestimate their abilities. You must be tired of living. Seeing the wall shrink again, Wu Xin, who was sipping tea, immediately laughed wantonly. Do you think you can do whatever you want with a sovereign-grade divine artifact? You must be dreaming. Let's see how you're going to die. Wu Xin, don't be complacent. We'll find a way to get out. Everyone else was somewhat discouraged. Only Night Sorrow calmly replied to Wu Xin. Ah, Yishang, are you still deceiving yourself at this point? Even Jin Ye's Dominator rank artifact couldn't do it. Do you really think that you, a high god, can really turn the tide? Stop dreaming. Today all of you will die. Wu Xin's malicious laughter sounded extremely ear-piercing in the enclosed space. Don't worry everyone. I will definitely help everyone overcome this crisis. After being provoked by Wu Xin, the anger in Night Sorrow's heart completely flared up, and he comforted everyone. When Night Sorrow said this, he used some of the green rock soul-rending roar technique and mixed in some of the power of merit, causing everyone present to be enveloped by the power of merit and calm down. You're really good at appeasing people. However, the only thing that awaits you is death. Tianyun Bao will become Wuxin's personal artifact. After seeing Night Sorrow's methods, Wu Xin, who was outside the array, indifferently provoked him. In his opinion, no matter what, Night Sorrow and the others wouldn't be able to escape the array in front of them. The Dominator rank artifact Tianyun Bao would definitely become his. Based on your character, Wu Xin, you're not worthy of a Dominator rank artifact. You'd better wait patiently for me to kill you when I get out. Night Sorrow didn't have the slightest bit of goodwill toward Wu Xin. After coldly replying, he no longer paid attention to the chattering Wu Xin. After all, they didn't have much time left. There was no room to waste. Sigh, what should we do? Yun Qianni, who was inside the clear sky pagoda, couldn't help but sigh when he saw the situation in front of him. Then he asked the Divine King in his body, Divine Ancestor, what do you think we should do to overcome this crisis? Method? There should only be one method, and that is to rely on Night Sorrow. In my opinion, if we want to break the array in front of us, not only do we need strength but we also need luck. Among everyone present, only Night Sorrow has this luck. This world can't trap him. After Yun Qianni asked this question, the Divine Ancestor's answer immediately appeared in his mind. He immediately transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. Brother Yi, the Divine Ancestor said that the only way now is to rely on your strength and luck. Why don't you give it a try? That's the only way. However, I'm only a high god now. When I use Tianyun Bao, the power is much weaker than when I use Divine King Jin Ye. After Night Sorrow replied to Yun Qianni, he paused for a moment and looked at everyone. Don't despair, everyone. In the next 6 months, I will work hard to cultivate and think of a way to break through to the Monarch God rank. Then I will try to break the array. If you have any elixirs that can help a high god break through to the Monarch God rank quickly, please don't be stingy. When he said this, Night Sorrow thought of the Rainbow Profound Spirit Elixir. This elixir was originally used by the Divine King to break through to the next level. He had taken 6 of them, but he had only broken through to the next level at the high god rank. This was hard to understand, but it also made him even more certain that if he took other ordinary elixirs, the effect would be worse. Therefore he didn't have much hope for what he had just said. After thinking for a moment he added, "Everyone don't study elixirs below the monarch god rank. They should be useless. Let me check the spatial artifact." Long Tianqing was the first to respond. She went into the spatial artifact to look for elixirs that were beneficial for cultivation. Jinya also started looking. He had just used the sovereign divine artifact Tianyun Bao, but he hadn't hit the erase barrier. This made him feel very uncomfortable. After searching for a while, he took out 3 dark red Bodhi seeds from the spatial artifact and said, "These are 3 king-level Bodhi seeds. They are very useful for cultivation. Back then I used them to break through the Divine King's barrier. Brother Night Sorrow, take them." "Good stuff. These Bodhi seeds will be very useful," Night Sorrow praised. He took the 3 Bodhi seeds and said, "Brother Jinya, this is an emergency. I won't stand on ceremony with you." "Brother Night Sorrow, don't stand on ceremony. Quickly enter the spatial artifact to cultivate." After confirming that the 3 Bodhi seeds were useful, Jinya was very happy. He felt that he had been a hindrance and had let everyone down. He felt very guilty. Seeing what Jinya was thinking, Night Sorrow took the Bodhi seeds and comforted him. "Brother Jinya, don't think too much. The array in front of us isn't easy to deal with. Even if it were someone else, the result would be the same. Don't blame yourself. The more you blame yourself, the happier that bitch outside the array will be." Yes. Brother Yishang's words make sense. From now on, I, Jinya, will not have any negative emotions. Chapter 2703. Ah, Jinya, you are also a divine king. Why are you behaving like a child in front of a high god? With your personality, this divine king can deal with 10 of you. Seeing Jinya's performance, Wuxian, who was outside the array, mocked him disdainfully. This was not only because he was bored waiting outside, but also because he wanted to disturb the morale of Night Sorrow's camp. When he spoke, he used some sound wave attacks to disturb the mind. "Bastard, what did you say? If you have the guts, fight me to the death." Hearing Wuxian's words, Jinya, who had calmed down, immediately became irritable. At this moment, Night Sorrow immediately used his power of virtue to envelop him. "Don't mind Wuxian. He is very evil. Just now, my state of mind seemed to have been affected." After being enveloped by Night Sorrow's power of virtue, Jinya, who quickly recovered, broke out in cold sweat. They were both divine king, but Wuxian's simple words caused him to fall into a frenzy. This was not simple. Wuxian's sound wave attack just now contained a trace of the power of darkness. If I'm not wrong, he is very likely related to evil creatures. Night Sorrow judged and said to everyone, "When I am in seclusion, all of you enter the clear sky pagoda. Don't give Wuxian any chance." "Okay. We will remember," Long Tianqing said solemnly. She took out 5 drops of emerald green liquid that contained violent energy from her spatial artifact. She explained, "Night Sorrow. These 5 drops of liquid were left behind by my grandfather. They are called God Origin Liquid. Not only do they contain the Divine King's laws, they also contain a trace of the Sovereign's laws. When you cultivate, absorb them. Not only can you strengthen your body, but you can also use the Divine King's techniques at the Divine Monarch level. Absorbing the Sovereign's laws will allow you to better comprehend Tianyun Bao. Senior Dragon Ancestor left this for you. It is too precious. I cannot use it." The reason Night Sorrow had immediately taken Jinya's Bodhi seed was because the Bodhi seed could not be used up after it was used. As for the Divine Origin liquid that Long Tianqing took out, it needed to be completely absorbed for it to be effective. Considering how precious it was, Night Sorrow refused. "Night Sorrow, those who do great things don't care about trifles. Look at the situation now and you're still thinking about the importance of the item. Under such circumstances, isn't everyone's life more important?" Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Long Tianqing said in a serious tone. Then Jinya also tried to persuade him, "Brother Night Sorrow, you are our only hope for survival. Stop procrastinating." "Good. Then I won't hold back. But I don't think I'll use it all." After Night Sorrow muttered to himself for a while, he received the 5 drops of Divine Origin liquid and entered the clear sky pagoda. because the time left in the outside world was definitely less than a year. It was impossible for him to break through to the Divine Lord realm in all aspects within a year. Only by cultivating in a spatial artifact would he have a chance. Lord Night Sorrow, this is the Divine King source that the Patriarch asked me to pass to you. You must accept it. Night Sorrow had just entered the Clear Sky Pagoda when the Horn Clan's Jiao Hui handed a spatial artifact to Night Sorrow and opened his mouth to describe. The Horn Clan's Patriarch, Jiao Hui, did not appear. Good. I won't say much, but as long as I, Night Sorrow, am around, the Horn Clan will live very well. Night Sorrow received the spatial artifact that Jiao Hui handed over and said a sentence. He was preparing to open up a space suitable for his own cultivation inside the Clear Sky Pagoda. But he did not expect that at this time, a divine lord in Xiao Tianxuan's clan also walked out and handed over a brocade pouch and said, "Inside are resources left behind by the sovereign. It's said to be used in times of crisis. I'm not sure what's inside. Lord Night Sorrow, check it out yourself. Since it's something left behind by the sect master, I won't stand on ceremony." Since he accepted everyone's things, Night Sorrow did not reject the Xiao clan's divine lord's gift alone. Receiving the brocade pouch, Night Sorrow walked in front of his family and opened his mouth to say, "Time is of the essence. I'll enter seclusion until death. I won't come out of seclusion until I break through to Divine Lord. Everyone take care. Don't be frightened by the predicament in front of you. When I come out of seclusion, everything will be solved with ease." Because time was of the essence, he did not prepare to speak much with the various wives. But after the elders and most of the wives finished giving instructions, Lin Piaomiao opened her mouth and said, "Husband, my current bloodline is very special. Before you take action, I'll inject my blood into Tianyun Bao. At that time it will definitely have pretty good effects." "Good. But this needs to wait until I break through first." His wife's words gave Night Sorrow a further idea. But currently, the difficult problem in front of him was how to successfully advance to Divine Lord in a short time. He did not have time to think about other problems carefully. "Good. Then I wish husband can quickly break through to Divine Lord." Lin Piaomiao looked at Night Sorrow and smiled. At this time, Jing Yun transmitted her voice to Night Sorrow, talking about some insights on breaking through to Divine Lord. She broke through to Divine Lord recently. The relevant experience was still very important. Everyone taking care of each other like this, Night Sorrow will definitely break through to Divine Lord as soon as possible and shatter the barrier. After Night Sorrow finished communicating with Jing Yun, he gave everyone a final glance, then walked into the seclusion room and started cultivating. Oh, breaking through to Divine Lord just like that. Do you think that cultivation is child's play? Just now, Night Sorrow did not hide the matter of cultivating to Divine Lord and shattering the barrier outside from Unheartless. Although not clear what happened to Night Sorrow in the vast heaven pagoda, Unheartless still said a sentence to his subordinates disdainfully. It naturally got his subordinates to pander. But the Night Sorrow in the middle of cultivating clearly did not think so. After obtaining many resources, he entered seclusion in the vast heaven pagoda's space. He took the lead to absorb the divine origin liquid provided by Long Tianqing. Although these 5 drops of divine origin liquid looked to be only the size of water droplets, absorbing them still consumed a lot of time. Every drop would take about 5 years to refine. But after thoroughly absorbing them, Night Sorrow's physical strength thoroughly broke through to the Divine Lord realm like the power of virtue and divine soul strength. After his physical strength increased, the only problem placed in front of Night Sorrow was cultivation. To Night Sorrow, the advancement of cultivation was the most difficult, because it could not be taken lightly. But what he walked was the path of validating his Tao through virtue. Relatively speaking, the difficulty of breaking through was not considered great. Especially with the 3 Bodhi seeds around, his epiphany speed was not considered slow. It was just that the average person needed thousands to tens of thousands of years to break through to Divine Lord, even 1 or 2 reincarnations time. In such a pressing time, it was still difficult for Night Sorrow to want to break through. How is it? Not out yet? After Night Sorrow entered seclusion for 70 years, Jin Ye, who entered the vast heaven pagoda from the outside world, asked anxiously. Chapter 2704. Half a month, even with the 100-fold augmentation, it was merely around 4 years. 4 years' time to ordinary people was not short. But to Divine World's cultivators, it was simply a matter of an instant. Hearing Jin Ye's question, Night Sorrow's wife, Sikong Chuyu, replied, Not out yet, but I feel that husband should succeed. He has never disappointed anyone in his life. So, let's hope so. If it really doesn't work, at most, everyone will die here together. It's not a big deal. Anyway, to cultivators, life and death are nothing. Jin Ye sighed, left the vast heaven pagoda, and observed the moving walls again. At this time he shouted in surprise, the moving speed has increased. 1 year, there's only 1 year's time in the vast heaven pagoda at most. We will be completely crushed. Tianyun Bao, did you bring night sorrow in? Long Tianqing, who did not wish for everyone to wait for death in despair, opened her mouth to ask. She thought of an idea. That was, everyone could enter Tianyun Bao through communication. After all, Tianyun Bao was a sovereign-grade divine artifact. Regardless of material or strength, it was not what a king-grade array formation could crush. After Long Tianqing opened her mouth, Lin Piaomiao replied, Senior Tianqing, Tianyun Bao is with me. What do you mean? What I mean is, try to communicate with Tianyun Bao and see if there's a space that can accommodate everyone inside. As long as we can hide in Tianyun Bao, the predicament in front of us can be easily resolved. Long Tianqing cut the long story short. That's a good idea. But I feel that since husband didn't mention it, it shouldn't be feasible. Lin Piaomiao sighed and said, no matter what, everyone has no other ideas now anyway. Rather than waiting for death, why not give it a try? I'll try first. After she finished speaking, she immediately tried to communicate with Tianyun Bao but discovered that there was no response at all. Subsequently, Long Tianqing, Jin Ye, and the rest also began to try one after another. But the results were still disappointing. In the end, even Xiao Tianxuan's clansmen tried to communicate with Tianyun Bao, but they didn't get any response. Everyone finally decided that they only had one hope, and that was Night Sorrow. As for Night Sorrow, he only needed a tiny bit of epiphany to completely break through to the Divine Lord realm. But he always felt that he was lacking something, so he never took that final step. With no other choice, Night Sorrow took out the package left behind by Xiao Tianxian and found only a note inside. There were 4 words written on it: believe in yourself. Believe in myself? Looking at the pouch, Night Sorrow was speechless at first, but after thinking about it, he completely understood. In the vast heaven pagoda's cultivation, he somewhat relied on everyone's help too much. The effort he put in was indeed not enough. In an instant, Night Sorrow calmed himself down and immersed himself in the epiphany. While Night Sorrow was cultivating, Jin Ye discovered that the speed at which the barrier was shrinking was actually getting faster and faster. The moment he finished talking about this situation, the atmosphere inside the vast heaven pagoda immediately became solemn. A shadow welled up in everyone's hearts. Could it be that everyone is really going to die here? When the barrier shrank until one person could not stand, Jin Ye, who was the last to stay outside, was also forced into the vast heaven pagoda. Seeing Jin Ye's figure appear, Yun Qianni involuntarily sighed. Although she believed in Night Sorrow, according to the time inside the vast heaven pagoda, there was still less than 100 days' time at the very most before the space would thoroughly crush the vast heaven pagoda. At that time, probably only the sovereign divine artifact Tianyun Bao could remain inside the vast heaven pagoda. Don't say discouraging words. As long as there's still time, there's hope. Jin Ye and Yun Qianni were both more pessimistic. Long Tianqing opened her mouth to berate. She did not want the atmosphere to be too solemn. She was afraid that this would affect the Night Sorrow in the middle of cultivation. Hearing Long Tianqing's words, everyone's faces more or less relaxed a little. But some people's smiles were uglier than crying. Although everyone was a cultivator, there were actually not many who could truly be indifferent to life and death. Jing Yun was considered to be one of the more resolute ones. But her face also revealed a trace of longing for this world. Because after she got married, she did not have much contact with Night Sorrow. Thinking of this, she muttered somewhat unwillingly, if only I could have met my husband earlier. That way I could still have left behind his bloodline. Fortunately, there are 3 young masters of our Night Moon dynasty who are training outside. Even if we unfortunately fall today, there will be a day when we rely on their talents to successfully take revenge. Datura sighed and was slightly glad. After all, her son Yi Xiaoluo was currently training outside. What are you all talking about? Nothing will happen, definitely nothing will happen. Believe in my husband, he will successfully complete the breakthrough. Even if he can't break through to Divine Lord, he will also appear and lead us to face the crisis. Seeing them so sorrowful, Sikong Chuyu immediately opened his mouth to persuade them. Her expression was not too good. It was not because she was facing a crisis, but because there were people in the family who did not believe in Night Sorrow. Hearing this, Datura explained, "It's not that I don't believe in my husband, but the predicament in front of us is really difficult to solve. No matter how difficult the predicament is, it can't stump my husband." Sikong Chiyu said one last sentence and did not speak any more. She walked to where Night Sorrow was in seclusion and waited without saying a word. And at this time, outside the array was shrinking faster and faster. It had already shrunk to the extent that it could not be seen with the naked eye and started to crush the vast heaven pagoda. Wuxia shouted loudly, "Sovereign artifact Tianyun Bao. I'm going to have you. Don't worry, I will bring you to stand at the highest point of the divine realm. You are completely a pearl covered in dust in Night Sorrow's hands. Wuxia, you beast, don't be so proud. Night Sorrow will come out to take care of you very soon." The vast heaven pagoda had already started to be crushed. Little Kong was somewhat unable to hold on. The space was already starting to become unstable. Wuxia was shouting at this time. Yun Tianyi could not help but open her mouth to scold. "Ah, scold all you want. This divine king will become the #1 divine king of the divine realm very soon. I won't get angry with an ant like you who is about to die." Wuxia, who completely occupied the upper hand, continued after responding to Yun Tianyi, "I'm very curious. Will you guys become meat patties or be crushed into meat powder? What will it be like if your divine soul is crushed?" Bastard. Seeing Wuxia being so proud outside, Yun Tianyi was rather unhappy. But they were in a crisis. She simply did not have the words to retort. "Ah, not talking anymore? Hurry up and say something. Hurry up and scold. If you don't speak, you won't have the chance to speak in the future." Wuxia provoked proudly. Everyone in the vast heaven pagoda was unbearably angry. But at this moment saying anything was futile. Not a single person spoke. Chapter 2705. The voice came from Night Sorrow. He walked out of the training room slowly and his aura was obviously different. Without a doubt, he had broken through to Monarch God in all aspects. It was just that his cultivation had broken through in an instant and he had yet to face the God-destroying tribulation. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Wu Xen laughed coldly. "Do you really think you're the savior of the world? Let me tell you in front of me, Wu Xen, you're just a dog being toyed with. You won't be able to survive today. Let's wait and see." The elemental energy around him was released uncontrollably. Night Sorrow looked like an immortal. "Husband, you didn't disappoint us." At this moment, seeing Night Sorrow appear, Lin Piaomiao, who had been guarding Tianyun Bao, handed him over. Seeing Tianyun Bao, Night Sorrow was stunned. He realized that after using his blood to nourish Tianyun Bao, he would grow the reverse scale of a dragon. But now he was covered in thick phoenix flames. He immediately looked at Lin Piaomiao and asked, "Sister Xian, are you okay?" "I'm fine. I just injected some blood into it. I was in despair just now, so I injected more blood." The heaven cloud Bao changed from a state of flesh and blood to its current state. Lin Piaomiao explained. She felt that everyone was going to die just now, so she didn't hold back on her blood. She kept injecting blood into Tianyun Bao, allowing him to enter a new state. "How do you feel? Do you feel uncomfortable? Take these elixirs." Night Sorrow looked at Lin Piaomiao with concern. He was very worried about her safety. For people with special bloodlines, if they used too much blood in one go, it would bring about terrifying consequences. "The amount of blood I used wasn't much. I don't feel uncomfortable at all." Seeing Night Sorrow's worried face, Lin Piaomiao smiled and explained. Actually, she wasn't lying. Although she kept injecting blood into Tianyun Bao, she did it drop by drop. It was just that she did it for a long time. "Alright. Then I'll try Tianyun Bao's fourth form," Night Sorrow said with a nod. Now that he had advanced to a God Lord, his horizons had been broadened. He deduced that Tianyun Bao's sovereign artifact had a very special setting. Only by activating the corresponding form would it erupt with the corresponding power. All this time he hadn't activated Tianyun Bao's true dominator mode, which was why he had been able to use it without suffering too much of a backlash. Of course, the fact that he didn't suffer any backlash also had something to do with Xiao Tianxian, Tianyun Bao's true master. No matter what you try, you will die." Wuxia, who was outside the formation, smiled proudly when he saw the barrier formed by the formation crushing the vast sky pagoda bit by bit. Let's wait and see. The current situation was indeed not easy to deal with. However, Night Sorrow didn't reveal a trace of weakness between his brows. He ordered Little Kong, continue to shrink. It'll be fine as long as it can accommodate everyone. Under his order, the vast sky pagoda, which didn't dare to shrink casually, began to shrink rapidly. When the vast sky pagoda shrank to a certain extent, Night Sorrow casually set up an array outside the vast sky pagoda that wasn't restricted by space and then entered it. Night Sorrow had just walked out of the vast sky pagoda and entered this space. Before he could make a move, his energy reincarnation arrived directly. Night Sorrow, who had the sovereign artifact Tianyun Bao in his hand, didn't shoot an arrow when fighting against the energy reincarnation. Instead, he relied on Tianyun Bao's toughness to ruthlessly slap the energy reincarnation to death. After relying on Tianyun Bao successfully transcending the tribulation, Night Sorrow poured 5 drops of blood into the Bao. Then, he activated the Treastrimsa Heaven's combat mystic art that was upgraded during cultivation. Combining it with Xiao Tianxuan's heavenly mystic art, Night Sorrow already upgraded the Treastrimsa Heaven's mystic art. After casting, it could increase his strength by 15 times. Break for me. Night Sorrow, who thoroughly advanced to the Divine Lord realm and became a low-ranked Divine Lord, shouted loudly after. He took out 3 heavenly cloud arrows and shot them towards the first point in succession. Rumble. When the first arrow was shot, the heavenly cloud arrow only sunk into the wall. Her. You brood for so long and the arrow you shot is only SOSO. Seeing that the effect of Night Sorrow's first arrow was about the same as Jin Ye's, Wuxin immediately opened his mouth and said disdainfully, "Break." At this time, the second arrow suddenly arrived. After the second arrow hit, the first arrow was immediately pushed in. The second arrow occupied the position of the first arrow. The effect is still okay. Night Sorrow was still quite satisfied with the effect of the 2 arrows hitting the target. He knocked an arrow and shot the third arrow. Rumble. The third arrow hit the same position as the first and second arrows and pushed the second arrow in. However, the spatial barrier was not completely broken. Seeing this scene, Wuxin laughed loudly and said, "Ha! You racked your brains to obtain cultivation resources from others to cultivate to the Divine Lord realm. What's the use? Isn't it still the same? You can't break the array's defense. You don't have to worry about that." Night Sorrow responded with cold words. He took out 3 heavenly cloud arrows again and shot them out one after another. The location where the arrows hit was still the same as before. Under the pressure of the heavenly cloud arrows behind, the heavenly cloud arrows in front completely sunk into the wall. 5 heavenly cloud arrows in a row still haven't broken through the defense. How thick is the array's defense array? After shooting 6 heavenly cloud arrows, Night Sorrow discovered that the array's defense still hadn't completely broken through. He immediately opened the Sea Serpent's Eye to observe. He had absorbed a large amount of resources to increase his strength. At this moment, the Sea Serpent's Eye had also improved a lot. He looked at the location where the heavenly cloud arrows had entered and discovered that it was still not far from breaking through the array. Therefore, he immediately took out the last 3 heavenly cloud arrows and prepared to shoot at the same position again. Seeing Night Sorrow continue to shoot arrows, Wuxin, who wanted to disturb his state, sneered and used a sound wave attack. In the blink of an eye, Yi Shang felt his ears ring when this sound wave hit the already small enclosed space. Do you deserve to be called the Divine King with an attack of this level? Night Sorrow, who was hit, suffered some damage to his Divine Sea. However, it wasn't a big problem because he had 2 Divine Seas at this moment. In an instant, he recovered and immediately shot out the remaining heavenly cloud arrows. Under the situation where the void was continuously vibrating. 3 heavenly cloud arrows nailed to the location where the other heavenly cloud arrows had hit. How is it? Has the array been broken? Yun Qianni, who was in the clear sky pagoda, knew that Night Sorrow had only used the Dominator Stone to strengthen 9 heavenly cloud arrows. When she saw the last arrow being shot, she immediately asked, Unfortunately, you didn't break through the defense. You shot 9 arrows at once. Prepare to receive the array's strongest backlash." Before Night Sorrow could answer, Wuxin, who was outside the array, shouted. Chapter 2706. What? Even Night Sorrow didn't succeed in breaking the array? The 9 heavenly cloud arrows that Night Sorrow had shot out were extremely powerful. They could even kill an ordinary Divine King. But they couldn't break the array's defense? Although everyone knew that Wu Xan was trying to disturb their morale, they still couldn't remain calm. After all, everyone had high hopes for Night Sorrow. Does Night Sorrow have any other ideas? What do you need us to do? Long Tianqing asked immediately. Just as Wu Xian said, the array's backlash would be very serious after shooting out 9 heavenly cloud arrows in a row. If they didn't think of a way to deal with it, everyone would be completely crushed. Even their divine souls would be crushed. The consequences were unimaginable. Brother Night Sorrow, let me blow up the remaining parts of the array. Mo Qianqian, who had been refined into a puppet by the sky-piercing bone pagoda's owner, stepped forward. If his puppet body exploded, the effect would be equivalent to many divine kings added together. It was extremely powerful and was used to break the array. Hearing this, Yishan hurriedly said, "The array formation is actually about to be broken. I still have one last move to try. Brother, wait and see." After replying to Mo Qianqian, Night Sorrow said to Long Tianqing and everyone in the Clear Sky Pagoda, "Don't worry everyone. If nothing unexpected happens, the array can be broken. Those who are strong, such as Senior Tianqing, Brother Jinye, prepare for battle." Night Sorrow, who was observing with the sea serpent's eye, was so confident because he discovered that the array's walls were about to be penetrated. However, he didn't have any more heavenly cloud arrows that had been strengthened by the sovereign stone. It was unrealistic to want to refine them in an instant. Thus, he took out the heavenly samsara halberd and prepared to use it as an arrow to break the array. "Ah, you're really laughable. You're actually using a halberd as an arrow." Wu Xian actually knew that the array was about to be broken. He was a little flustered, but he didn't forget to mock Night Sorrow. "It doesn't matter what method I use. The most important thing is that I can break the formation." Night Sorrow swallowed 2 pills to recover his vitality and adjusted himself to his peak state. Then he shot out the heavenly halberd of samsara like an arrow. But the samsara halberd that was shot out was obviously more powerful than the heavenly cloud arrow. The trajectories of the other heavenly cloud arrows could be seen, but the heavenly samsara halberd tore through the void completely. After it was shot, it almost disappeared without a trace. When it reappeared, it had already bombarded the 9th heavenly cloud arrow. Crack. After the samsara halberd hit the 9th sky cloud arrow, there was a slight cracking sound in the air. Hearing this faint cracking sound, Night Sorrow was overjoyed. He knew that the array was almost broken. Bastard. Just a divine lord, what right does he have to be so domineering? Hearing the walls of the array make a kacha sound, Wu Xian's face was filled with tyranny as he smashed the teacup in his hand. He simply couldn't understand how a lower-level divine lord like Night Sorrow could be stronger than the middle-level divine king Jinye. This was something that had never happened in the god realm before. He was much stronger than him in the same batch. This made him very jealous. "Just because I'm a merit divine lord." Wu Xian was originally murmuring, but he did not expect that these words were heard by Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow replied with a sentence, then displayed the azure rock soul-rending roar, thoroughly shattering the walls that already had cracks. With a bang, the array formation before their eyes was thoroughly broken. Seeing the light of day again, everyone in the vast heaven pagoda could not help crying out loudly. They were equivalent to suppressing it for several decades in the vast heaven pagoda. Venting this sort of emotion through furious roars felt especially invigorating. Ah! Brother Night Sorrow is truly the god realm's #1 genius since ancient times. The array formation being broken, Jinye left the vast heaven pagoda right away and praised loudly. Long Tianqing, who similarly came out, smiled and did not speak. But her gaze when looking at Night Sorrow was full of praise. Toward this genius that she witnessed growing up with her own eyes, Long Tianqing's fondness was beyond words. Her. Everyone is overpraising. Since we've already broken all of the array formations. Next, prepare to start the battle. Night Sorrow breaking the array formation and being praised by a senior, it was impossible to not have any ripples in his heart. But he placed his attention on Wu Xian very quickly. Observing Wu Xian with the Mirage Dragon's eye at close range, Night Sorrow said in an icy tone, "So, you're related to otherworldly demons. You saw through it? Since you saw through it, you should be clear about what you're facing." Wu Xian, whose face was full of brutality, the aura on his body gradually became dark, erupting with an even more powerful aura. The divine domain that he released even made Jinye feel terrified. Such a powerful dark aura, this is an otherworldly demon? The Golden Crow clan that Jinye belonged to had been reclusive for many years. Seeing such a change happen to Wu Xian's body, he asked in puzzlement. He's not an otherworldly demon, but he's already fallen and demonized, betraying the god realm. Under Night Sorrow's Mirage Dragon's eye, Wu Xan could be said to have nowhere to hide. Being seen through by Night Sorrow, he said with a smile, "How's the God realm? So what if you're an otherworldly demon? As long as I kill you and obtain your Tianyun Bao and your providence, I, Wu Xan, will definitely surpass Tianyun Bao and become the strongest person in the world. As for what race I'm from, it doesn't matter. Given your circumstances, you won't be able to become an ultimate expert." Hearing Wu Xan's words, Night Sorrow mocked him. Ultimate expert? The true ultimate experts of the God realm had all hidden themselves and gone to another world to fight. Wu Xan couldn't compare to that kind of circumstances and feelings. With your divine Lord vision, you can't see how powerful I'll be in the future. The brutality on Wu Xan's body continued to grow stronger, and his aura became darker. At the same time, he released the 4 divine king-level otherworldly demons hidden in his body. 4 middle-level divine king-level otherworldly demons. Wu Xan, do you think you can fight us with such strength? Night Sorrow, who had already ascended to the divine lord level, glanced at the 4 otherworldly demons and confirmed that they were all middle-level divine king-level otherworldly demons. He was confident that he, Long Tianqing and Jin Ye could wipe out all these evil creatures. Of course the 4 of them won't do, but my methods are heaven-shaking. Today you'll all die without a doubt. Wu Xan's white robe had been completely covered by the black aura. One of his eyes was red and the other was black. He looked extremely evil. As he spoke, he took out an umbrella-shaped black banner from his spatial artifact and threw it into the sky. The originally bright and sunny sky was instantly covered by a thick darkness. After the sky was completely covered by the darkness, a huge crescent-shaped crack suddenly appeared in the void. A black arm covered in green hair stretched out from the crack in the void. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.